back the page. I'm here in the space you made, flickering lights that begin to fade. Just fall back the page.
Timeless like galaxies, brightness and light, no gravity. We'll break the stratosphere towards the heavens. We'll be on our way into the atmosphere with cosmic presence. We will light the way. We're shooting stars in the night. Oh, we're shooting stars in the night. We're shooting stars in the night. Oh, we're shooting stars in the night.
Weightless, we're floating in the dark. Take my hand and we'll combine our sparks. Watch as we soar together, you and I, as we make our getaway into the sky.
Oh, we're shooting stars in the night.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NACE PUBG Mobile Campus Championships. Once again, my name is Oliver Bass, joined alongside by none other than DK. And DK, we are back here for the second day of this incredible event where we are going to crown a brand new North American Collegiate Champion here for the Campus Championships. And honestly, I'm more than just excited to not only find a champion, but to see who's going to walk away just a little bit richer on the day. With $5,000 on the line, you got to be excited. DK, I know I am, but even looking at this prize pool, I'm getting even more.
Yeah, I mean, $2,000 for first place, that is going to be a very, very healthy dose of ka-ching coming on through. But it's only going to be for the top 4 places. We can see 4th place, they're going to be walking away with $500. So it is going to be quite a bit of a push to come through. I mean, yesterday already, a very strong effort being brought by our teams. But I think it's all going to come down to what is going to come through on this last play. I mean, this last day, the final 3 matches, it is going to be all down to this.
It absolutely is. We've only got, like you said, 3 more matches to go here. We found ourselves going through our first 3 yesterday with Sandhawk, Vikendi, and Erangel being the way that we wrapped that one up. Today we got Miramar, Sandhawk, and Vikendi yet again. We're going to wrap it up on a map that was relatively familiar to us yesterday. And honestly, I don't exactly know what to expect because, while we had our ideas of what we were going to see yesterday, it ended up getting flipped on its head relatively quickly here, DK. Our players from the qualifiers that did well didn't exactly shine yesterday. It was a Humber College that came out the end of those 3 matches with 39 total points in our first place position, while Seneca College are just behind them at 36 and Fanshawe in 3rd. That does not mean the rest of the competition is out. Those are just the only 3 teams at the moment who are above 30 points. So we've got our players to watch. We've got our teams to watch at the moment. Now what we got to do is watch the maps as well. Like we said, we're kicking this one off with our 4th match of the weekend in Miramar. And honestly, I'm not sure what to expect, DK. If it's anything like yesterday, I have a feeling these players are going to come in very, very aggressive.
Yeah, I'm quite excited to see what today's going to bring through. With the addition of Miramar coming in, I mean, we know what to expect on Sandhawk. We know what to expect on Vikendi, right? We saw what our teams were doing yesterday. But I think the change-up going through into Miramar, that is going to add an extra additional level of excitement here, seeing that it is a much larger map. In fact, it is the largest playable area that we have currently in PUBG. So the teams will have a lot of opportunity to really just, wiggle their way around this map to get themselves into position. Of course, looking at what the terrain provides as well, there's a great opportunity for a few more of these stealth attacks to come through. So I think there's going to be quite a bit happening in this very first game.
Yeah, we saw that yesterday with multiple teams kind of dropping on top of each other. Some of our front runners coming out of the main event, or excuse me, of the qualifier events, actually ended up dropping on top of each other constantly. It was a Kent State versus Centennial that kind of continually, I would say, troll each other, if I'm being real here, because it didn't come to the benefit of either of these teams. Kent State right now out in 8th place overall. Meanwhile, we've got Centennial in 5th place overall. Neither one of those teams would qualify for money right now, despite the fact that they were our number 1 and number 2 team coming out of the qualifier. So teams got to focus up today. It feels like some of them have maybe a little bit of an ego. You know, they're feeling confident, they're feeling ready, they want to take on those early engagements, and then it comes back to bite them. So, DK, these players do need to be careful here today. If they get a little bit overzealous, it could mean them missing out on any share of that $5,000 prize pool.
Yeah, I think the big name of the game for today is going to be how teams are able to focus on what they need to bring to the battlefield here, right? Yesterday, we did see quite a bit of consistency being brought in. I mean, Humber, Seneca already speaking for themselves, right? The performance is right out there. So that is a strong play that they've already been establishing across the way. But now, I also think that we are going to be looking at a bit of a contention coming through for especially the 4th place, because looking at what we have on the leaderboard, there's not a big separation moving from that 4th place downwards. I mean, we got 2 teams currently sitting on 17 points with one then on 16, right? American River College. That is one match, and all of that can change up. So I believe it's all going to come down to the very last play, right? Moving into match number 3 of today, I think the contention is going to hold true all the way to there.
I would have to agree with you on that one here, especially considering the fact that we've seen teams jump up and down this leaderboard within the blink of an eye. Seneca, if I'm not mistaken, made up a majority of their points within that first game. I believe that they were able to get about 20 points almost off of rip. So after that, it was kind of just the slow burn, trying to accumulate extra points to give themselves a little bit of cushion to work with. Well, in comparison to a Humber who just kind of came out very, very aggressive and kind of stayed that way the whole time. Total placement points for this team as it stands right now, 14. But that's not what's got them first place. It is their 25 eliminations. They are currently almost 10 eliminations clear of second place, Seneca Red, who have 16 total. So Humber looking good right now, looking like they might be the best team out there. So we're gonna have to find out at this point. All we can really do is wait, and all you guys can do is interact with us, maybe get a little bit involved in the community here. Guys, we not only have things to give to these players, but we've got things to give away to you guys at home as well. We want to remind you guys again, if you head on over to the Nace Star League Twitter, at Nace Star League on Twitter, you will find that we're doing even more giveaways over there. 10 chances at 600 UC prizes available, drawn at the end of the weekend. All you have to do is retweet for a chance to win, or you can pay attention to these broadcasts. We've been giving away codes, one and done, throughout the weekend. We gave away 5 yesterday. We're giving away 5 today, starting just about right now. Make sure to look on your screen. Make sure to pay attention, because it's going to flash down below me, and it'll be gone before you can even think twice. That code for 600 UC if you want a chance, but it's first come, first serve. Like I said, once that's redeemed, it can't be redeemed again, so you're going to have to pay attention to the rest of the broadcast. We have 4 more of those codes to give away. DK, I got to say, for those at home, they got to be pretty excited, man. You not only can watch some incredible PUBG mobile action, but you can even get some rewards from just paying attention to the stream.
Yes, sir. That's exactly how it works, right? So, I mean, of course, a nice reward coming through for just being here and sharing the action with the teams that you see is going to be going quite a long way. I believe it's what, 600 UC per opportunity, right? Per code that is going to be dropping in. So as we mentioned yesterday, there's quite a few things that you could actually get done with 600 UC. And I mean, if you're fortunate enough to get more than one code, I mean, what are you going to complain about, right? There's just going to be so much to play for. And you, of course, added quite a few more of those lovely skins to the, well, already hopefully good bit of a stash that you have with regards to the skins. But I think for today, though, I mean, if I'm looking at what we've been talking about, our teams coming through, right, and also taking a look at a bit of that qualifier leaderboard that we had stepping into this, I mean, I got to give it up to Jacksonville State. I mean, a very similar kind of performance than what they've been bringing through in their qualifiers, but now I want to see that being pushed that extra little bit further. I mean, in the qualifiers, they only got 2 eliminations. Now they've got 4. But again, right, they're going to have to try and chase, maybe see if they can catch up, because, I mean, the longer they wait, the bigger that gap is going to be, and the more challenging it is going to be, of course, to try and close that up. I mean, the point situation is also not too vast. Definitely all the way to where we have Manitoba currently sat on the leaderboard. I mean, this is all very much achievable within one really strong game. So I'm excited to see, especially what the teams are going to be bringing onto Murmur. As I've mentioned before, a big, luscious map, right? A lot of terrain to play through, but also a big opportunity for more of those ranged plays to come in. I mean, we did see a few of the AWMs being utilized yesterday. So I'm curious to see if we are going to be maybe having a little bit more of that bolty action now coming into fruition here.
I'd love to see a little bit more of the long-range combat. We did see a lot of, I would say, combat start at a long range, but then as time continued on, it got a little bit closer and closer with the combat. I think back to our final sort of engagement of yesterday, where we saw that standoff at the very top of that hill on, I'm trying to remember, I think it was on Erangel where we were starting to see that. And so it kind of just feels like at the moment that these teams are starting to stay hesitant from these engagements. So look for that initial down, look for that initial elimination, and then that's kind of the signals go, 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 and then it will become CQB rather than like long-range battles back and forth. But as you're mentioning, new map, new day, who knows what's going to happen? For a lot of these teams, though, they do need to stay clinical. We saw this happen more times than once yesterday, where teams would go for these early engagements, get into these early issues, and then all of a sudden, player goes down, they don't have a chance to res them. All of a sudden, they have less players going into those final circles, and that's kind of what ended up winning out yesterday. You think back to the final battle on Erangel in that very small circle at the end, it was the fact that that team had 3 players alive that really ended up winning it out. I want to say it was Seneca that ended up coming away with that one. So it does matter to make sure that your players do stay around, do stay alive, do stay in these matches as long as possible, because the numbers game is going to be extremely important, especially as we get down to our last final matches.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree with what you were just saying, and you know, it's gonna be quite a bit of a play, because as you know, being able to perform consistently well on these maps is challenging. I mean, that is why we are here having so much fun with what these players are bringing out. But I think another part that is also quite important here is a little bit of a preemptive rotation, right? Especially when you see that big bad blue zone making its way on through. Sometimes we have a few players that like to tank a little bit of that blue juice. I know blue juice is fun, right? But too much of a good thing is really bad for you, right? So you got to get your butt back in that zone before that zone has closed up all the way. And of course, you can definitely look to capitalize on the opportunity, because if you are the team situated up ahead, right, there are going to be several that could come filtering in behind you, and a great opportunity for an amazing gatekeep then to come through.
You have the ability. I definitely have seen a couple of teams make some odd rotations here. Again, when nerves are on the line, when $5,000 on the line, and when we've got our first match of the day just around the corner, who knows how you're going to rotate. Not every team is always built for these type of engagements. Not every team is going to be able to keep their wits about them when the pressure is on. And with $5,000 worth of pressure here for the Campus Championship, DK, I'm expecting some of these teams to make some odd moves, some odd rotations, some odd decisions throughout the rest of our day. It's a day that's just about to start. Like we said, first map of the day is going to be a Miramar here. And with some long-range engagements possible throughout it, I'm expecting teams to hot drop all throughout this map.
Yeah, and I mean, you were talking about the odds now, right? But I'm sincerely hoping that the odds will be ever in their favor, right? To see what the teams are going to be able to bring on in. Miramar could definitely have an interesting setup with regards to the flight path. We've seen central zones, we've seen flight paths leaning a little bit more towards those extremities, but especially looking at the terrain, you want to maybe look towards the north, being the slightly more mountainous region. If we head down towards those more southern edges, that is where things become a little bit more like Sanok, right? So it feels a little bit more up close. Not necessarily that it always is the case, but I think a major thing to remember here as well is that on Miramar, things also appear much closer rather than they actually are, because remember, it is still such a vast map. But I'm excited to get into it to see exactly where our teams are going to be going, and of course where those first few initial zones are going to be popping.
I'm hoping that we don't necessarily see teams immediately dropping on each other, or at least maybe not the usual suspects here. We mentioned this earlier on in the broadcast, but I'll mention it again. It was Kent State, and I believe Centennial College, who continually had this rivalry yesterday. But yesterday, they also didn't necessarily have a flight path like this, going east to west, north to south. A little bit different than what we had seen before. Maybe this will force KSU and Centennial to go to different drop points.
Yeah, I that's a good one to wait for, as we already have a few players now starting to disembark. A few of the hotspots, of course, they up in towards Pozo. El Pozo could be a very nice place. So we got San Martin, we got Hacienda del Patron, potentially even Chumacera or Los Leones. But at the end of the day, it's all going to depend on what that zone is going to be bringing through. I mean, even La Cobreria up towards that northwestern side could be a very, very sweaty spot to play through. But now it does seem like the teams know exactly where they want to get themselves situated. Already, we have a few takers then coming up in towards Campo Militar, which I think is an interesting decision, especially seeing that it's a region that is not necessarily always included within the zone.
Yeah, we gotta wait to see where the zone ends up pulling. This circle, if it goes anywhere central, is going to be a little bit of a problem. I think the biggest one would probably be a problem if it pulls south. We got a couple of teams sticking very far north, including that blue team to the very top right. So, kind of want to make sure that we pay attention to see where this circle ends up pulling. But for right now, let's pay attention to the teams that might already be having some issues outside of just rotations alone. You see a lot of teams dropping in that central zone. Like you said, Hacienda del Patron is probably going to be one of the more hotly contested spaces. And based off the drops we are seeing right now, I think it's going to stay that way. There and San Martin are going to be two places we have to keep our eyes on in these early moments of this first match.
Well, let's see as the zone is getting ready to pop. Ooh, it takes us over to the west. Now, this is super interesting because already, as you can see, a big chunk of that western side is unplayable area. I mean, the players can try as hard as they like, right? They are not going to be able to climb those hills. So I think, especially looking at the zone, I think a position like Monte Nuevo, La Riera, those could be some very interesting positions to occupy. But of course, looking right out of the gate here, I mean, Kent State, good starting point over in towards El Pozo. But then we've got the players there from Centennial A all the way up in towards Campo Militar. So they're going to have to do quite a bit of rotating, especially if they wait until the blue zone forces their hand.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. You see that team taking a very northern, very eastern drop point, and it's going to force them to not only rotate all the way into this first circle, but on top of that, they have to rotate through a multitude of teams in front of them. I'm going to do a quick little count just to see about, let's say we get into the edge of the zone just around Hacienda del Patron. How many teams do they have to go through? I see a green one, I see a yellow, I see a, I guess call it brownish red, and I see a pink. That's 5 total teams just to get to the edge of the zone, and even if they do that, they still have a team inside that will be lurking for them. So pay close attention to that team. Unfortunately, I don't know if Centennial is going to be able to make that long trek, but they don't have much of an option. Similarly here, though, Humber does have an option to get aggressive early. We talked about this. Our elimination leaders overall just shy of finding themselves 30 total eliminations. To see them already getting aggressive here in our first match of the day does not surprise me.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at Manitoba here, this is a good setup in Hacienda del Patron because they do have quite a bit of that hard compound positioning to play from. And I'm not quite sure what the Humber College approach is going to be at this point. Maybe looking to disengage because they are holding on to very spread out positioning here. I mean, Jassa, the closest one to them, but the rest of the team situated much further on towards that more eastern side. So ideally for both teams, I think a nice casual stroll into the zone would be very commendable and maybe advisable, but of course we're not going to say no to a bit of carnage in the early game, right? We are going to be wanting a little bit of that chaos, a little bit of that mayhem coming through, and of course Hacienda del Patron is going to be a good position to in it, especially.
Yeah, I think the only concern I do have is, like we've been talking about, these guys are just barely on the edge zone right now, so any fire that they do end up fighting with is going to cause the attention of many other teams around them, including the team just on the inside there. Although I don't expect them to, because that is American River, and American River, as we talked about yesterday, rather passive team. They weren't aggressive, they weren't getting in the faces of any of their opponents early, they more tried to stick around for as long as they can and accumulate placement points more than anything else. So, as it stands right now, I'm not surprised to necessarily see Humber backing off a little bit or maybe trying to take a little bit more of a strategic approach. They don't want early engagement to go against them, especially if they get the attention of the teams around them. So, as you can see here from Kiddu, which was, I believe, our elimination leader in particular just for the individual player yesterday, trying to size it up. They've got one player lurking on the side, Jassa there, still keeping an eye on everybody from Manitoba. Looks like he might have taken some shots, some health missing there from the Manitoba players. We might finally have the signal to start this one up. And Manitoba, yeah, already a player down. This could be a problem for them, DK.
Yeah, but it's going to be go time indeed. Already, it seems like they have 4 eliminations to their name. I'm not quite sure how they were able to sneak that one in. But, oh, yes, of course, we saw that in the early game. Never mind me. But now it's going to be down to our final 10 teams left to really duke it out and show us what kind of action, what kind of approach they are going to be looking to bring on through. Manitoba now going to be dipping out as they look to just rotate away there from the lovely Hacienda del Patron. Maybe a more of a Western play could be acquired by them. But as you can see, Jassa just keeping their eyes absolutely peeled on that rotation as they do fall back into a little bit more of that hard cover. But again, at this point, right, looking to make the most out of the 2 pieces that they've got left. That is going to change up their approach ever so slightly.
Trying to play this one, I think, for the best angle possible here. They know that they've gotten the compound here. They've got plenty of space to work with, but the issue is that they don't really have a line of sight here. It's Humber College that's just surrounding them at the moment. They know they've got shots firing against them. They know that somebody's there. They do get a little bit of a visual as Kiddu starts to drive across this open field. It is going to signal to everybody on Manitoba that not only are they not alone, they at least have an idea of where this team is rotating to. I don't think they know. That was more or less a bait. Kiddu trying to take the distraction of this team, and they have figured it out. Manitoba recognizing that there are a couple players just lurking on the ridge next to them, so they don't want to leave the safety of these buildings quite yet. And as the firefight continues to ensue and the shots start to spray, it is Manitoba who are going to find themselves their first down. Kahardy goes down quick.
Oh, come on now. All they got to do is build on this. I mean, they've already been able to secure themselves that squad wipe. Now, they just got to continue with this momentum, right? Just apply the exact same pressure moving through. But again, it's all going to come down to what these positions are going to allow them to do. Nice bit of hard cover, good bit of reach. But again, Humber, I mean, they just knocking on the door. I love the sneak approach coming through from Jassa, waiting to time that shot to perfection.
I love this. It's the bait and switch that we keep on seeing here out of this Humber College. Initially, they said Kiddu around the side of this field to try and distract the team. Now, all of a sudden, they send Jassa in to sneak on by, and it will work out initially. Proton's down. Kiddu still has that back wall to try and penetrate through. Meanwhile, Jassa in a 1v1 here, which can quickly become a 1v4, but he might not even need the rest of the team. Jassa needs maybe one more shot to finish off the job, and he's got reinforcements just in case, firing through every single window or Humber College, and they'll finish the job. Manitoba find an early squad wipe, but that is all they will get here in our first match.
I mean, that is so exciting to see. Big brain strat rather coming through here from Humber College. I mean, a beautiful bait and switch play. Such a phenomenal distraction. But now they've got free reign to take themselves all the way back in towards the zone, as we are now only left with 9 teams. But I mean, a little bit earlier, we were talking about a team like Jacksonville, for instance, right? I mean, they've got a beautiful setup currently held in towards the lovely Chumacera, and they've been chilling there for quite some time. But I sincerely hope that the teams that have zone positioning are prepped and ready to go. As we can see, there are still quite a few teams that are yet to take that plunge and move on forward. But speaking about plunges, Lloyd, look over at the eastern side.
Yeah, this is about to be quite something special. You can already see 2 teams rotating through the north, getting forced out by the blue. 2 teams all the way east, just on the coastline right now, who I guess are starting to get in vehicles, starting to make that rotation, but they're going to have to rotate through each other. I'm just thinking of the two drivers side by side, having all of their other passengers firing out the windows, trying to see if they can land any shots. It's going to turn into chaos very quickly, but it might also be a chaos that, like we said, hits the road. Looks like the official long haul into the zone has started. For teams that are already established there, they just got to get ready. It's going to go from a very peaceful and serene setting to a chaotic firefight very quickly.
Well, we are going to be right on board for all the chaos that we can get. But, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, right? We did see one of those Seneca teams already getting taken on down. A very unfortunate turn of events coming through from them. But that, of course, then being the players from Seneca White, right? Seneca Red, all the way over towards Impala. Now, of course, the team sharing that position with them is going to be a Centennial B. But especially the distance they still have to cover, I think, is going to allow for some interesting rotations, right? There's a lot of vacancy moving in towards the zone. So it's all going to be about the map knowledge, right? How well these teams know positionings, and of course, also then those capabilities of playing those positions. Speaking of which, here goes Fanshaw now looking to capitalize a little bit of that high ground elevation.
Yeah, you're talking about positioning. Fanshaw might have the best of them here as they find themselves far above the rest. And I guess technically Centennial as well, but they're not as keen to get in the firefight. They still have to trek further into the circle as they are currently on the outside of it. Blue ticking away, a little bit of health at a time, but it's not enough that's going to force them to make a quick move, especially considering know that Fanshaw are directly in front of them. They know they're holding on to this complex, and if they want to get past them, they're going to have to fight for it. Fanshaw, though, they're going to finally make the move. They recognize that this safe space isn't going to stay safe for much longer, so they'd rather make the rotations now, wait for a little bit longer. Honestly, probably the best idea here. Like you said, with elevation changes abundant here, you don't want to try and rotate late into the circle, and then all of a sudden find a team that is already taking a similar high position against you and force you out of the zone.
Yeah, I mean, that is all down to a little bit of a gamble, right? Again, with that preemptive play, I think there's going to be a lot of that pressure getting alleviated as the teams will not have to stress, right? Already looking at the ones well situated within that zone, but as we are approaching that next zone, getting ready to pop on up, it does take us right up in towards Monte Nuevo. Even potentially Pazo could be a good point to maybe try and focus for. So here's to see what Kent State is going to be doing, seeing that they are holding on to the most western position here.
It's also a very different strategy out of Kent State. You and I talked about this yesterday. Kent State would almost always go into a game, look for a couple of frags here or there, pop an elimination, 1 or 2, and then all of a sudden find themselves a player down and then try to kind of, slow down the rest of the game. This time, they drop far away from any other teams, get an early position within the circle, and have stayed quiet for the most part. They might have recognized that they dropped the ball yesterday, and if that they want to try and pick it back up today, they do need to make up a large amount of points. Currently sitting at 8th overall with only 13 points. In order to even get into our top 3, they need 20 plus points in this game. So Kent recognize that this is not going to be easy for them, and any risk that they might take could be costly. So honestly, I for one, DK, am a fan of what we're seeing right now. Kent playing a little bit more passively probably is going to be the smarter strategy in the long run.
Yeah, that could maybe be the approach, right? As we do have still quite a bit of room to wiggle through. But I'm liking the slight bit of contention that we have now starting to develop up in towards that northeastern side. As we can see several teams starting to converge on through, especially looking at Conestoga here now rotating up from that eastern edge. I mean, just disengaging from Picardo. Again, not the craziest position that they need to really have to fight for to get themselves situated, but I think it's all going to depend heavily on just how far into that zone they are going to be looking to get themselves situated.
Well, they're making the trek right now. Not exactly sure where they're going to end, but I don't think really any of the teams do either. As we can see from the very edge of the eastern part of this zone, it seems like everybody's finally getting into the circle, getting prepared for what is probably inevitably going to be some fights. So multiple different teams converging around that central point there at Monte Nuevo. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some shots fire from a distance here. A couple of teams maybe try to take some vantage points on top of these hills. Looks like everybody has got a vehicle, at least to the team, so they can maneuver rather quickly. And like you said, with a large map like this, it's rather necessary to be able to traverse quickly. And it seems like Seneca are no strangers to exactly that. They're looking for a little bit of a vantage point here, as I think they recognize American River is around them, and Centennial recognize that Fanshaw is around them. Remember how we talked about this? Fanshaw, great vantage point initially outside of the zone. All of a sudden they get in, and the fear is that they might find a team from a higher vantage point that have a view of them. Yeah, that's Centennial. The line of sight right now on Fanshaw could be a huge problem.
Again, as I said before, right, looking at this region, there's a lot more mountains here, right? So we could see a different kind of that strategic delayed rotation now being applied here, because sometimes you can see a few of the players now really opting to climb to the very tippity top and see just how much of a vantage point they can find to play off of. But I think another interesting thing also then to look at is going to be the players from Centennial B starting that rotation now, heading all the way through the southern edge. I mean, remember, they were all the way over on the east, sharing the position they were Seneca Red, but they've now opted for a very lengthy play, very lengthy rotation. So I'm curious to see what their approach is going to be moving in once they get not only out of the blue zone, but also then situated on forward, as there's a lot of congestion now starting to come through up into Monte Nuevo itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are starting to center around that. Not many teams trying to bank on El Pozo right now, as it makes sense considering the fact that it's a little bit more towards the edge of the zone. But despite that, the one team that hasn't made any rotations at all, still Kent State, all the way to the western side, basically hugging the border of the map at this point. They're trying to avoid fights as best they can, and they might be the only team doing so. Yesterday, we talked about how American River had a similar strategy, and that netted them a fantastic amount of points overall, sitting in 6th place. But the issue for them is that they're going to now find themselves at pretty much the center of all of the action here. Whether or not they like it, American River's strategy from yesterday might come back to bite them today. In comparison, Kent State might be able to use that strategy just a little bit more. Think about how many firefights, how many engagements yesterday, DK, that we saw Kent State go into, and if they had all 4 of their players up, they probably would have won. If they can get to these latter circles to the end of this game and still have their whole squad up, this could be a monumental game for them.
Yeah, definitely could be. So it's all going to come down to focus, determination, and, well, I guess a little bit of luck, right? Because, again, it is RNG at the end of the day, and it's all going to be dependent on where this next zone shift is going to be taking our squads. But I'm liking the fact that teams are starting to just really trickle up in towards that center zone, so it means they are especially close. But, again, things are a little bit vaster than they seem from all the way up here. I mean, once we get down to the map itself, there's a lot of space still being held in between them. I mean, especially just looking at what we've got coming through here from American River and Seneca, right? Both teams on the map seem to be especially right there on each other's sides, but you can see quite a bit of a range now being played here. But for Seneca, this could be a good opportunity to really leverage that elevation down in towards Monte Nuevo.
I'm a bit surprised that Seneca is kind of seemingly focusing only on Monte Nuevo, like you were mentioning, though, because they do have a couple of teams behind them and on the outskirts of the circle that they could definitely prey upon, especially considering looks like we do have a little bit of a circle change here. We're finally moving on to our next one, and my goodness, have they staked themselves a perfect position. I gotta say, I'm not necessarily surprised to see Seneca utilizing their abilities, utilizing their rotations. I think the more surprising thing is that we haven't really seen any firefights since our last circle enclosure here. Despite it shrinking so vastly, all of a sudden, as you guys can see, it's still probably not going to be a fight in Monte Nuevo. All the teams are going to have to come through Monte now and probably go even a little bit further south. And again, DK, the only team staying away from the action is Kent State.
Yeah, but see, so the difficulty there for Kent State is that position is going to be a very vulnerable angle to hold, especially seeing that we've got the rest of the lobby situated over on towards this eastern side. So I hope that they've got a strategy to get themselves out of that sticky situation. In the meanwhile, well, speaking about sticky situations, we can see Jacksonville actually now starting to move in just in behind the of Seneca, and this could be exactly the kind of position that they need to try and play off of now, looking to maybe drive in a bit of that opportunity, find a bit of an angle here to utilize. And again, it does seem like Jacksonville is going to be dialing up the aggression as they potentially come knocking on the door.
Seneca here, though, just trying to avoid this fight. They recognize that there are players encroaching on their territory, but they don't want to make the move before they have to. But that might have been the signal. We talked about this yesterday. A single down can sometimes set a team off, and despite the fact that Seneca are the ones who get it, all of a sudden they see Jacksonville in a vulnerable position and start launching nades, utility dump all up this hill. As Dev just kind of tries to buy time for the rest of his teammates to rotate on up. This could be a problem. Jacksonville need to get their third player up immediately. That res has to come through. Otherwise, I don't know if I like their odds in a 3v4 situation. Dev, even more nades in hand, even more utility to dump. Despite the fact that they don't know where the players in front of them are, they're going to continue to not allow them to make a rotation while the rest of Seneca does ascend up this hill and get prepared for the fight.
Well, the pressure is going to build as we do see that feed also now starting to line up. A few teams engaging slightly further towards the northern side. One of them, of course, being Kent, right? Also looking to jump into a little bit of the action. We got Humber also getting quite aggressive. You can see Humber just off in the distance there. But again, the elevation looking quite favorable now for the side here of Seneca Red. But are they going to be able to hold on to this? As we know, Blue Zone is going to come closing on through. The teams now currently being just squished all together. And there is a little bit of a standoff now coming through. The team's not necessarily having the angles they thought they would have.
I think the big issue right now is that we're slowly getting pulled away from these main points, these POIs, where we're seeing teams be able to use cover. That is not natural here. Monte Nuevo and Ladrilla are going to have a couple of buildings for players to play within. The further we get pulled to the west, the more open the space becomes, and that height advantage that we've spoken about a couple of times becomes all the more valuable. But I am interested, as you guys can see on the west side of this map right now, the fight has officially started. Kent State, they've tried to avoid this for as long as they can, but the road below them starting to become a little bit occupied by Manitoba and a couple other colleges here. So this is going to get rather worrisome if you're a Kent fan here, as initially you're thinking, oh, this team's going to be able to outlast the rest. All of a sudden, they might not even have the option of that. Very few teams going down within the last couple of circles. And now as it starts to shrink even further and we get further away from these main points of contention, I don't really know whose game this is.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, but now as the zone has shifted back up into that northwestern side, this is going to be go time, not only for Kent, but we also then have the players there from Humber looking to play down in that ditch. But with Manitoba, or rather Centennial now up on this hill, this is going to be a good opportunity for them to just reach across the way, especially into the side of Kent, because as I mentioned before, that position is going to become quite vulnerable, and that is now pretty prevalent.
wondering how Manitoba are planning on holding, or excuse me, Centennial are planning on holding this one right now, because despite the fact that, like you said, they probably have the best position out of any of the teams currently within the circle, they also have a couple of teams in between them that they can maybe start trying to pinch. You mentioned Humber College here. They are directly in between Kent, but it's not going to make a difference because all of a sudden the firefight starts in a building instead. Seneca find multiple of their players down, and now American River, a team that usually tries to avoid fights, don't have an option. It started for them whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and I mean, they definitely have to bring in all the defense they can. But look at this. Conestoga also now trying to capitalize as they do find their first elimination for the day. The pressure's going to be on, though, now for the side there of Bay that is going to be taking a little bit more of a lengthy rotation, trying to play for that longevity, trying to get themselves situated much further into those late stages. But again, the pressure is on. Now I'm looking towards that more southern end, right? The teams are starting to push on forward. Kent now really having to defend as Jacksonville has rotated across right into them.
Jacksonville, though, aren't necessarily able to take these engagements all too easily. They're getting some shots on Harmon, but they recognize that as soon as this fight does happen, they got to make sure they have quick work of their opponents in front of them. Despite Kent not being involved on that board all too much, we haven't seen them pop up in the feed a lot here in this game. They recognize how capable they are. They know this team. They know that themselves need to be clinical, and they are. Viper gets the first down here in this engagement, and that could be the signal. We talked about it before. One player goes down, the rest of them start to follow. I think in this case for Kent, it's going to be more defense than it is follow. Rotating to that south side, trying to see how long they can stay up, and honestly, I don't know how much longer. More shots from a distance as Jacksonville just are unrelenting at the moment.
Yeah, but that is exactly what we want to see, right? We want to see a very contentious play now coming through. And I think at this point, Kent also coming to the realization that there might be a snake in the grass, right? Several teams are going to be looking to converge down on towards them. But a good disengage here, just getting themselves situated a little bit further up on towards that northern side of the. Meanwhile, it's going to be up to Jacksonville now to lock it in as they do pick up the first one coming through at the expense of Kent. But now Kent have a lot of room to wiggle through, right? They can maybe try and call it a little bit more safer here, but looking at Centennial A, I mean, it's so weird how the tables keep on turning.
Centennial keeps on seemingly having the best position, and then slowly that position gets pulled away from them. New circle has officially popped, and it's looking a little bit awkward here for Centennial as they kind of have the vantage point, but they have to go down from their vantage point if they want to stay in the circle. We'll check back in on them in a little while. But right now, we check in on the last player remaining here for American River College. They're in a 1v3, and they will not win it. All of a sudden, the job is finished. Humber, yet again, continuing to prove that they are the elimination leaders here in this tournament for a reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be really difficult to fault the approach coming through from the side there of Humber, but now, right, they have a bit of an opportunity to just get themselves decently patched up before potentially taking on even more engagements. But in the meanwhile, the sprays are continuing to rain on through as the action now turns onto the side here of Jacksonville, and they are down to a three-piece. Again, trying to advance their way on forward, looking for a bit of a push to get themselves situated up in towards the zone. But, I mean, Conestoga coming in behind them is definitely not going to make that any easier.
This is not easy for any of these teams right now. You can really look at any of these positions and recognize that they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. For Humber here, yeah, great. They have buildings. They've got the ability to at least keep themselves within cover, but they're also pinched between two teams that both have the high ground on them. On top of that, you look at a team like Kent. They're in a pretty good position, which nobody really has a vantage point on, but they're also down a player. Then you look at Conestoga, like you were talking about. Yeah, great position because they've got the high ground, but they've got Jacksonville right next to them, and Jacksonville aren't in the circle. Now the play zone's about to restrict. We're going to see a lot of teams start to dive on top of Kent State, on top of Humber. I wonder how they're going to be able to survive. For a Humber that's just kind of living there in the middle of the road, this is not going to be a fun experience for them.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be any fun whatsoever. But in the meanwhile, Seneca Red with a beautiful bit of an opportunity as they come moving through from that southern edge. You can see them not just here ahead of Conestoga, but again, Blue Zone does catch up, and that is going to throw quite a few spanners in the works. As it's now going to be jump time. Let's see who's going to be the one to find that trade as the push is flying down the hillside. And I mean, what makes this monster truck especially difficult to utilize it is such an easy, big moving target. But look at that, Psycho getting traded, and that is it. Centennial B will get swiped off of this map.
Very quickly, other teams will join them. Constoga also getting sent back to the lobby as teams repeatedly start to fire from every which angle. The feed in the top left lighting up more than a Christmas tree in December as everybody's biting the dust. Over and over again, our front runners seem to have some issues. Meanwhile, it's the teams that we've said have played a little bit more carefully that are having it work out. Humber College now on 6 total eliminations while still having their entire team up. Apparently, their position was not as vulnerable as we thought. Who cares about the high ground? As long as you can win your one-on-one firefights, you're good to go.
Yes, sir, that is going to be the play to make at this point, and this is now Kent's opportunity to see if they can maybe show a little bit of dominance. Definitely they are going to be tested. We can see Humber knocking on the door, trying to get themselves situated. But I think the main concern at this point is going to be looking at a team like Centennial, right? They are just been so quiet up towards that northern side, but they have to still push forward to get themselves situated up in towards the zone.
I don't necessarily want to count out Seneca either. They might have a player down, and they might not be able to play with a full squad, but they still have him extremely capable. Meanwhile, Kent State haven't really been able to prove their capabilities despite us knowing that they have them. And here comes Centennial to try and put them to the test. And Centennial, that might have been not the rotation you wanted. Vortex goes through 2 teams and does not find eliminations on either. Meanwhile, KSU picking up their first eliminations of the game, but costing them for it. A player down to 2 remaining. Very quickly went from a safe position for Kent to safe position for pretty much nobody.
Yeah, and that is the beauty of this position within this map. But now it's going to be go time as Potato is going to be looking to rush on forward. No time for Salad this time as we see the sprays also just locked in over towards the east. And that is a very unfortunate play now for the side here of Fanshawe as they will get taken out in 5th place. But the pressure will continue to build as we are now down to our final 4 teams. Already looking at the tally here, I mean, we are looking at some pretty decent elimination counts.
Oh, not only we're doing that, but we're starting to see what was an invulnerable team before this drop like flies. Humber go from 4 players up on 7 eliminations with only 2 remaining. What initially we thought would be a huge issue here for Centennial and Seneca and Kent State with players gone is turned into a bigger one as the only player alive for Humber all of a sudden sneaks around back and finishes the job. How on earth did Daku go unchecked?
Oh, but that could now result in a beautiful finish. And we say goodbye to the side of Seneca. Right down to the final 3 we go. It is going to be a 2v1 to duke it out for that final winner chicken dinner. I mean, Centennial A have themselves in a very, very tough position. I mean, it's not going to be an easy rotation, especially moving up that hill. But now it's going to be up to Darko and Jasser to try and lock down the lobby as they do find the confirmation. And now they know exactly where their final target is.
Uh-oh, and this is an issue because nobody's really got sight here on the individual player left here for Humber up top. Yes, they technically have 2, but they've got 1 a little bit lower down. So for Kent State, their vision is split. 1 player up high, 1 player down low. Both of them covered by smoke screen. Are there even going to be shots exchanged, or is this just going to be Humber bum rushing them and trying to finish off the job? Prince, the only one alive, having to heal up. The zone ticking away. Daku and Jasa don't know where they are, so they do have the advantage at least positionally. But honestly, DK, I think that's all that Prince has got right now. They're just trying to delay the inevitable, and the inevitable will happen. Kent State eliminated, and Humber College will take home our first chicken dinner of the day.
Oh man, but Bass, does that chicken taste oh so nice? I mean, 12 eliminations and over 2,000 damage. I mean, yesterday the highest tally we saw was 1,000 damage, right? Today we doubled down on that and we walk away with 2,131. Insane performance coming through here from Humber.
Yeah, they did fantastic here, and it's not just the ability to try and close that one out, but it's the ability to stay aggressive the whole time through, and in those individual engagements, almost always coming out on top. I can think back to at least a handful of moments there where we thought Humber might be in a vulnerable position, might start to struggle, and then all of a sudden, we see them just rush a house, and it works out perfectly. I don't know how they keep getting away with it at this point, DK, but apparently, after day 1, no one learned their lesson in day 2, because Daku still going unchecked. 5 eliminations on 700 damage. This guy is a ringer.
Oh yes, definitely is going to be a ringer, but a phenomenal play nonetheless. I mean, we want to see more of that as Darku just locked it in. I mean, Humber, I think they're setting the precedent here, right? Yesterday, finishing
Yeah.
exceptionally strong, coming into the first match here, just looking to push it even further. But now I think it's going to be no surprise as to who our MVT is here, right? Humber going to be picking that up, sitting with such a beautiful amount of eliminations.
2,000 damage. Again, the whole team really putting in the work there. And usually we'd look to a team and be like, okay, you know, the most valuable player individually is going to be carrying them. Baku didn't exactly do that. With only 700 damage, they take just barely above a quarter of the team's total damage. And with only five eliminations, they don't even take half of the elims overall. So Jessica Hardy and Kidu, I got to give them credit. They're all pulling their weight equally at the moment. And that's got to be a careful and dangerous thing when the rest of the competition isn't putting up nearly the same numbers. Look at this. Our top 4 teams, not a single team gets even 75% of the way to the amount of damage that Humber was able to put out.
I mean, that is quite impressive, but you got to commend the side there of Seneca Red, right? Coming in with also, again, just over 1,000 damage, but Kent State falling 1 point shy of hitting a century. I mean, just one. That is so close. But of course, well, we look to see that improvement come through in our remaining matches of the day. But again, the top 4 so far just putting in so much work, really trying to secure themselves within this leaderboard. And looking at it, I mean, it does seem to be quite a hard attempt.
It's a good attempt. The issue is that people not only need to try to attempt to catch up, they need to slow Humber down. Humber already coming into this one was our #1 team at 39 points total. I think you can do the math yourself. Another 22 on top of that. Heck, that is more than half of the teams in this competition had going into this first match. So Humber starting to pull away from the rest of the pack. They sit at a firm 61 points overall. Honestly, at this point, it might just be a catch-up game for the rest of this day.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Who knows? But taking a look at the eliminations and damage, again, those conversion rates just looking so beautiful. I mean, you got to commend Humber, right? Doing so much work and having such a successful run, it just looks amazing. But Manitoba also doing quite a bit of damage. 868 damage, finding 4 eliminations out of that. So that's about half. I mean, not a bad conversion rate coming through on their end as well. But we want to see more, right? We've worked through all the other matches that we've seen coming into today as well, right? We do have Sanok, we do have Vikendi finding its way in. So I'm curious to see how the teams are going to translate their Murmur performance into those two.
I gotta hope that they were studying some of the tapes from yesterday, because a lot of teams had very similar draw points yesterday, and it caused for some early fights that we weren't exactly expecting. We had some early fights here, as you guys can take a look at the replays and see exactly what went down, but it was these battles in the buildings, as I like to call it, that kept on happening. Over and over, we'd see teams have that initial man push, then all of a sudden, we'd see a couple more players come through, and almost always it was the numbers game that ended up winning out here. Good example as Humber finish off the job against American River College. This was only one of the players that was added to their tally, even in the final moments where it looks like they're going to go down to a Centennial who have the mountain. Somehow Centennial snuck up behind. Humber finishes the job and clears a pathway straight to victory for them. It's an impressive play so far, DK, but again, the job is not finished yet. We still have 2 more matches after this.
Yeah, but you know what also works quite well in favor of Humber College? It's just the pacing that they'll bring out on these matches, right? Just being absolutely relentless. And you called it, you said 60 plus points. There we go, sitting with 61 on board, 37 eliminations. I mean, just based on eliminations alone, they would have been sat in 3rd place. That is one hell of an impressive performance coming through from their end. So, I mean, this day is just popping off so tremendously.
Yeah, this is crazy. I don't really know what other word to use at this point here. Very rarely do we see a moment where 4th place isn't even half of the total points that 1st place is right now. Humber truly are just outclassing their opponents, and it's not just in eliminations, like you said. Even placement points alone, they are tied for the most amount of placement points out of any of the teams participating right now. So, campus championships. Teams right now paying attention to what's going on here for PUBG Mobile in North America. Get prepared. We've got a lot of teams starting to show, but it is Humber who you guys are going to have to try and slow down. But you know what? Take a break from a little bit of the action and the chaos and everything that is going down to remind you guys once again, they're not the only people that are currently competing for a little bit of prizes. You guys could be, well, not competing as well, but maybe getting involved in the action. Again, if you go over to the Nice Starlink Twitter, we are giving away codes for you. See 610 different codes, or just pay attention real quick. We're going to flash code right below me here. It is a one and done. Redeem it before it's gone. 600 UC as well for the first person to claim this code below DK. And guys, it's not the only one we're going to be giving away. That's code number 2 of the day. We have another 3 after this one, but again, they're going to have to come a little bit later into the day, because for right now, what we've got to do is head to a break. We've got a little bit of a break upcoming here, but when we return, it will be match number 4. Not only match number 4, it will be the conclusion to, well, not the conclusion of the day, but starting to get to the conclusion of the day. So don't go anywhere. When we return, even more Campus Championship action. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the PUBG Mobile Campus Championships. Once again, my name is Oliver Bastion, alongside by DK. DK, we find ourselves exiting out of our fourth match, going into our fifth, and finding ourselves with the usual suspects on top yet again. It is Humber College who finish off with a chicken dinner of their own on top of 12 eliminations. This team currently sits at 61 points overall, are far and away leaders. At this point, we gotta hope that as we go back through our usual rotation of Sandhawk and then Vikendi, that maybe some teams can start to try and catch them.
I'm curious to see, though, what is going to come through, because if we look back at yesterday's performances, right, this is where Seneca Red really stepped up, right? They got that winner chicken dinner, so they've already created a bit of an expectation, a bit of a standard, so I want to see if they're going to be able to kind of meet that expectation and maybe even secure themselves that winner chicken dinner yet again.
They have to at this point, because unfortunately for them, if they don't start slowing down this Humber College team, they're going to miss out on that lion's share of the prize pool. Again, $5,000 up for grabs for our teams competing here at the Campus Championships. And unfortunately for a lot of these teams, they're not even getting close to being able to contend with the best that we have got right now. Our top three teams are 61 points, 45 points, and then 34. The next closest team in fourth place is at 27 points overall. That is Centennial College, currently sitting in third place overall. And although, or excuse me, fourth place overall. And despite the fact that fourth does get you some money, it's only $500. You'd rather walk away with that $2,000 grand prize for first place. And for a lot of these teams, that has to start here and now. Like we said, moving back over to Sandhawk, one of the maps that we started off with yesterday. I believe actually our very first map of the Campus Championship. Now, DK, they got to try and re-emerge yet again. For multiple of these teams, I would say this one's make or break. If they don't start catching up here in this fifth match, I don't know if 6 is necessarily going to be the turning point for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take quite a bit of hard work, so who knows? Maybe American River, maybe Jacksonville could really look to step it up. I mean, they are still within a position where they could make a play for, let's say, third or fourth place. Pushing all the way up into its second, I think it could be a little bit of a difficult play to be had. I mean, Kent State also sitting on 23. That does put them really much, very much just up there. But, I mean, even looking at Seneca College, right, they could definitely look to close it off in this, at least this next match, because they're trailing by 16 points. And from what we've seen so far over the previous matches, I mean, 16 points in one game, that is not an unachievable objective. So I think Seneca Red, this is their chance, especially in a map like Sandhawk, a map that they've already shown their competency on. They now have the opportunity to step up and potentially dethrone the side they have Humber College.
100%. And I think for a couple of these teams, what they do need to focus on, though, is either A, trying to get Humber out early, or B, trying to avoid going down early themselves. We've seen a lot of teams fight each other off of rip. They'll get off the plane immediately onto the ground, and as soon as the boots touch, it's just firefights either way. So teams have got to be careful at this point. If they do play a little bit too haphazardly going into Game 5, they could throw the whole game away and then not really be able to chase that reward any longer. If you guys, though, would like some rewards of for yourselves instead of playing in the game, why don't we give you some right now? Again, we're giving away giveaways, guys. We got a bunch of UC to give away, including on your screen right now. If you guys want to use the code below, why not? It'll give you 600 UC, and it's a one-time offer. Grab it before it's gone. Otherwise, you're going to have to try again in the future. We've got another 2 codes after the one that you see right below DK right now, or maybe you guys can head on over to the Nace Twitter instead. Nace Starling Twitter, where you guys only have to repost their giveaway for 10 more codes, just like that one. Either way, we're making sure that we're giving back to the fans. We're making sure that we're giving you guys something to play for. And, well, these teams are about ready to play for it as well. A couple minutes until we drop on into this one. And, DK, you mentioned how on our last map in Miramar, players were going to have to focus on some of those long-range engagements. It absolutely happened. The height for certain teams really came to their advantage. What do teams need to focus on now that we rotate back over to Sandhawk?
I think for Sandhawk, it is going to be quite important to keep your head on a swivel, right? Seeing that is a much more condensed map, right? There is going to be a lot of opportunity for those third-party plays to come through, a lot of which we saw actually happening yesterday. So I think the teams already have a pretty good idea as to how to manage their way through what the jungle is going to be throwing at them. But of course, also a great opportunity to get up close and aggressive, right? Lock in those eliminations, because we have some strong contenders with that. I mean, Seneca Red, they already sit on 21 eliminations, so they could definitely look to capitalize even more so and just look to bank on those points. Because if you look at the points separating them from Humber, it is only eliminations, because they essentially have exactly the same amount of placement points.
I think the only team I can recommend at this point to continually just diving on every team and throwing caution to the wind is Humber. For everybody else, be a little bit careful, but it is exactly the strategy that has gotten Humber here. Like you said, this is a team that is far and away our elimination leader right. Place for eliminations overall is Seneca College at 21, but they are currently sitting in first at 37, almost double the amount of second place, and very much so still clear of our second two teams combined. 21 and 15 between Fanshawe and Seneca. That is still only 36, one elimination less than our first place alone. So Humber are very clearly not just, you know, having a good day yesterday, they're feeling it today as well. So for a lot of these teams, they have to look to slow them down here in match number 5. If they do not, DK, this is going to be a rough match number 6, because who knows how it's going to go. So, again, we saw the resurgence of Kent. We saw the resurgence of Jacksonville. We saw the resurgence of Fanshawe. Can they keep it going? We are just about ready to hop off the plane and hop into the action here for the PUBG Mobile Campus Championships match number 6. After this one, we've only got one more left, and we crown a new champion. And DK, I'm getting just buzzing with anticipation. I'm ready to see who we got.
Yeah, I'm also quite buzzing to see exactly who we've got. But, you know, looking at the lineup that we've got coming through from the teams here, the players then coming through from Centennial B, I believe that is. Right, I wanna see at least a few eliminations being secured by their end. I mean, so far they've only been able to secure those placement points. So I'm going to be looking to see if they can have that opportunity, right? Have that run and maybe lock in a few more points, because, I mean, you want to at least see everybody walk away with a decent share of that aggression, right? The rest of the lobby, they've just been working their butts off when it comes to the spray downs. So maybe this could be exactly the map, right? A very aggressive map that could allow for that opportunity to come through, and maybe that is going to be the play. But of course, I think that another team here could potentially be the side of American River College, right? Also, they've been showing quite a few good strategic positions. I just want to see it now work out in their favor.
I think the issue for them is that they don't seem to have those confidence in those close range engagements. Those CQB interactions that we keep on seeing, they almost seemingly always fail. And again, their best result yesterday was kind of the opposite of exactly that. They were able to hide out in a couple of different compounds here or there that they would rotate through and just avoid the action until it was necessary. Until they were forced into those engagements, they would almost never take them. And unfortunately, they didn't really get the option there in that last one. The way that that circle ended up holding kind of put them in the very center of all of the action. And as soon as they started to have teams start and drop on their buildings, on their compounds, all of a sudden became a problem. So they have to be aware of that here. I would agree with you. American River, we have high expectations for this team. We have our sights set on glory, but do you guys have that as well? You need to step up big here on Sandhawk, but so does the rest of the competition. So for American River, and I guess really every college listening in right now, make sure you take this one carefully. This could be your last chance to shake up this leaderboard. If you can't get it done here in match number 5, what's to say it's going to be any different in match number 6 if Humber College just gets to pull away a little further? We're hopping off of the plane and into the action, and my goodness, finally we get an east to west east to west line to start us off.
Yeah, but I mean, it might be a little bit short-lived, right? Not only is the plane going to cover this space quite quickly, as you can see, it seems like it's running at like Mach 7 or something, but I think it's also going to be quite heavily dependent on how these teams are going to be blessed with regards to that zone. I mean, that is, I think, the most essential part when it comes to this map of Sandhawk. But as we say that, the flight path is essentially done, and now we all just got to wait to see exactly what the teams will have to work with. But we are not seeing any hot drops really coming through, except for maybe like up and towards Hatin, as we do see Rolex and Code coming in a little bit hot there. But that is what we want. We want to see these teams being put to the test, and who will make it out of there alive.
I gotta say, I appreciate, though, that Kent State are making an adjustment. Yesterday, I believe we saw them and a couple other teams drop at Hatina, as well as also Camp Alpha. And this time, they see multiple teams drop at that northwest island and go, nope, we're good. Let's just go down to Tombang and play a little bit further away from everybody. And honestly, it's probably the right decision here. Like we said, Kent State were having a lot of, I'd say, problems dropping off and seeing other teams immediately as soon as they do get off of the plane. So this time, they're going to try and take a little bit more of a distance. A team, though, that is taking your advice, DK, and getting a little bit more aggressive is American River. This time, they're dropping on top of another team. I believe Seneca is in the exact same position as them right now.
Oh, this is going to be exciting to see now that he's starting to push a little bit further forward. I mean, both teams are occupying either side of Hatin here. We can see a little bit more of that northern focus coming through from Seneca. But again, it is going to depend on how they look to strafe through this one. I'm curious, especially to see what Psycho is going to be bringing in. As we saw yesterday, Psycho just managing to find a few decent placed heads coming in here. I mean, but Romad and Leo, they were just capitalizing. Each of them securing 3 eliminations for the squad.
They've both been clinical for this team here. Seneca College have done fantastic. Again, there's a reason why they're at nearly the tippy top of our leaderboard overall. And if they're able to wipe American River quickly, that'll do them wonders on their journey to try and catch up to Humber, who is currently still sitting over 10 points in front of them. Lining it up, you can see them trying to find the approach here, but unfortunately struggling to find any openings. They know American River's around them. They can hear them. They can see them on occasion. In terms of trying to actually find these engagements, it's just not happening. Feeling that this battle for Hatin is going to stay for a little bit longer here, and Seneca know they're there, American River know they're there. The question is, where exactly are they?
Oh, well, there they are, as Rolex just times a few hits there. Unfortunately, not finding it exactly pinpoint accurate, but again, they will have quite a few opportunities, especially looking at the spacing that they have to work with here. But it does seem like the rest of the squad are now trying to flank their way around up to the north. And this could be exactly the kind of strategy you need to play to get that jump on towards Seneca Red. But if that is going to be the case, right, if that follows through, it's going to be a very unfortunate day for Seneca. As we know, they are the team that is pretty much the closest to contest that pole position.
Yeah, they can't lose this. There isn't even really a question at this point. For American River, it definitely would suck if they lose this, because then all of a sudden they don't really have that much of a chance to at least catch up to our top 4. Again, overall right now, the money is going only to our top 4, and Jacksonville just stand barely, or excuse me, not Jacksonville, American River stand barely outside of that at 16th points. I believe putting them in either 5th or 6th place overall. So this team can't really afford that if they want money. And on the other side, if Seneca want to even be able to stay in contention with Humber, they can't lose this either. And there we have it. Our first down's officially coming through. Romit's going to take out Rolex, and now all of a sudden, we have a 3v4 in the battle for Hatin.
Well, let's see whether or not this puppy is going to heat on up, as we have Dev now just waiting on the corner, looking for a bit of an opportunity, maybe trying to find a bit of reach, but both teams still very segregated, right? Keeping their distance, and I think rightly so, especially looking at how team could potentially be played out. I mean, Seneca, they don't want to relinquish any of the control here, but I appreciate what American River is doing. They are looking to push that envelope. They are trying to apply as much pressure as they can here, and let's see whether or not they'll be able to succeed all the way to the end.
I will say, if American River is smart here, and if they recognize the situation, they're going to rotate out of Hatin and get as far away from their opponents as possible. Going down a player immediately does not give me overwhelming faith in this team to be able to turn this one around and win a 3v4 against our 2nd place overall team. Especially considering, yeah, the zone, as you can see, has pulled perfectly over them. They have no reason to stick in Hatin when the rest of this northwest island is completely unscathed. If they need to, they can rotate out, head over to Camp Alpha, and find themselves a much more elongated stay in this game. Instead, they're sticking here into Hatin. I don't know if it's because they don't have an option, they're struggling to rotate out, or if they just want this firefight. Either way, DK, looks like the battle for Hatin is going to continue to rage on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the meanwhile, the rest of our lobby are going to be creeping their way on through. I mean, looking over towards Kent, it is very difficult not to make a Star Wars reference at this point, right, with the R2D. I want to add the 2 at the end, but, you know, I'll keep off of that for the time being. In the meanwhile, the opportunity is going to come through as we do see Psycho just starting to push a little bit further on forward. But you got to appreciate the consistency coming through here from American River, right? They're just keeping themselves distant and now using that opportunity to disengage. And maybe they heard you saying that there's a lot more space on this island. Maybe we could even see them pushing all the way back in towards Camp Alpha, or maybe up onto the Chungus Mountains just towards the south.
They're trying their best. You can see them literally hugging the very edge of Hatin here. They don't necessarily want to disengage if they think that on their rotation they're going to get caught out. They don't recognize that apparently Seneca just going to let him do it. Seneca all the way on the other side of Hatin at this point. So they're smart. If they're clever, Arc is going to make this rotation out and completely get away and try to live to see another day. We said, match number 5 is really crucial. It's not going to be make or break for all of these teams, but it's sure going to give you a much better idea of how you're positioned going into our final match of the day, as this is our second to last. So, on American River, take the hint. Get out of a tin. There's no reason for you guys to stick here unless you're really trying to take this fight, and I don't recommend it. Speaking of fights, though, looks like we got another one. Centennial and Manitoba. Almost the complete opposite side of the map here. Now starting to get into a fight of their own.
I mean, I'm quite hopeful here for Manitoba. Already sitting with 2 eliminations up. I mean, the last Sanok we saw them play, they had 5 elims. So there is a great opportunity for them now to look to maybe capitalize on that aggression. But again, so much work that still needs to be done here, as they not only have to play for that zone, but they still have quite a bit of ground to cover. And of course, they are going to be contested all the way towards this far eastern side of zone. So Manitoba, they know exactly what the expectation is at this point. They need to find that rotation. They need to find a good disengage. And looking at their positioning, they could definitely possibly pull that off.
Remember how, like, coming into this one, you and I were both thinking, you know, teams probably aren't going to hot drop on each other, right? Like, there's no reason. You know, it's match number 5. Like, they're going to try to play this one safe. All of a sudden, we have a battle between 2 teams literally as far away from the circle as we can get. So I guess we were wrong. Hot drops for everybody right now, including Manitoba and Centennial, who just do not want to disengage. Like you said, both of these teams just don't want to separate. And meanwhile, Kent apparently don't want to separate from the team around them either. They're finally getting involved in the action and will reward them with an elimination of their own. So KSU taking their time with this one, but very clearly not shying away from a firefight.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the addition of Conestoga coming through there onto D2, going to be finding themselves in a bit of a situation. Ah, man, I tried. Didn't exactly work out. But either which way, let's see whether or not Manitoba are going to be able to get the sprays. The utilities are going to be flying. Again, the defensive angle is there, but the DBS comes through clutch as it does lock in the elimination. And now they have a beautiful opening to just clean the house out. Now, Kent also going to be looking to double down. I mean, Conestoga, a very challenging spot on the opposite end of that river.
Not exactly sure what Conestoga's plan is here. And again, maybe it's the thought that, okay, we can't go behind them. They can obviously see that Jacksonville is technically behind them on the very edge of the zone by Quarry, but boot camp's more or less free. They might not know that boot camp is free, though, and that could be the issue for them, is that rotation out of this position could be costly. Meanwhile, Kent State, they recognize exactly where they've at. They have themselves a great vantage point to work with. Yes, they don't necessarily have the high ground, but they have a high enough ground to work with. And if they can catch out this team against them for a couple shots, you can find some more eliminations. Already 1 tally to Prince alone. Could Kent State maybe double it early on here? Again, we talked about this. Kent, one of the most impressive teams through qualifiers, haven't been able to live up to those expectations so far. Meanwhile, Fanshawe, I would say that they have lived up to the expectations. Manitoba, our expectations were measured. Unfortunately for them, we're going to have to rejoin them again in match number 6 as they are sent back to the lobby.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely looking at Kent here, I think they are going to be looking to up the ante, up the performance that they brought through in the previous Sanok, because you remember back to yesterday, they got taken out in 10th place, and they also got backed up with not a single elimination to their name. This time around, already sitting with 1 on board, looking to secure even more so. So the pressure, the angle, the focus definitely coming through from their end. And of course, looking at where they find themselves currently situated, there's going to be a great opportunity for that play now to continue on through. I mean, they can essentially just sit here and fish for those hit markers. Meanwhile, Fanshawe, they got themselves a position all the way up in towards Paradise. They have a bit of company coming through here, but again, you got to watch those angles.
There's so many teams starting to get into fights here. Again, it started off a little bit quieter, but as is with expected with these smaller maps, all of a sudden, you can't really avoid the fights for all too long. Circle closes, and so do these engagements as teams start to get closer and closer to each other. Got a huge battle here for Paradise right now, as multiple teams within the vicinity is kind of looking around. Despite the fact that Fanshawe have been one of the best teams we've ever seen, or at least throughout this competition, I don't know if I necessarily guarantee them a win against what I believe is a Centennial in front of them. So they got to be careful here. As it stands right now, this could be a very, very close battle. And if Fanshawe aren't careful, this could cost them dearly. Currently sitting in 3rd place overall. If they want to keep themselves firmly within that top 4, they have to make sure they get further into this game.
Yeah, well, that is going to require quite a bit of work, right? And looking at what we've got coming through here from the side of Fury and Co., I mean, they definitely not going to be looking to relinquish any of themselves for eliminations, right? They are going to try and lock this position down and defend it as best they can, but that is going to add to the excitement here. Seneca White just patiently waiting for a bit of an opportunity, waiting for that angle to strike, but they're going to have to act quickly, because if you give Fanshawe too much room, I mean, they're going to take it all up and then some.
Especially considering, at least in my mind, they hold on to the west side of the zone right now. And as you guys can see, the circle hasn't exactly pulled away from Paradise, but it's at least on the western side of this. So if they hold on to it for long enough, they're going to force that team to rotate through them, and it's going to be a problem. Speaking of forcing a team to rotate through them, there's no reason to rotate through here. Humber just want to frag out. Kiddu comes through and immediately takes out Psycho with his teammate. Humber, my goodness, I don't know what angered you guys, but apparently you're furious.
Yeah, now it's going to be down to the Fishers, right? As you can see, the rest of the team now opting down into the drink. And this is the kind of upset that we live for, as the teams will now have to start with a bit of backpedaling here. I mean, Seneca Red definitely not having the kind of opportunity here that they've been looking for. In the meanwhile, I mean, Fanshaw still going to be just waiting quite patiently on the edge. I think for this, at this point, Fanshaw could maybe opt a little bit further in towards the zone, look to leverage that position, but I think a big majority of that play is going to come through the moment this blue zone closes, and we see exactly where that next zone is going to be taking us.
We're closing in on that very quickly, only a couple of seconds left, and I feel like that might be the signal here to where the great battle for Paradise Resort is going to happen. Oh my goodness, or maybe they just need to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible. That zone pulling even further west. This is the second map in a row now where we've had the circle pull about as far west as possible. Are we just doomed to repeat history for all three of our matches today?
I mean, only time will tell, right? There's no way of knowing exactly what is going to come through. But yeah, moving to the northwest, that is going to be quite a bit of a challenge, especially looking at how these teams are disposed. My eye is also drawn a little bit up into Trifecta, right there with the players from Kent, looking to just get it on the lockdown. Conestoga having to push up. We got a little bit of that Jacksonville push coming through as well. So Viper, I mean, this is the map that kind of coincides with their name, but unfortunately, they're not going to be able to snake it until they make it in this one.
Gotta say, I'm interested in pretty much every fight that we've got going on right now. I feel like the fight for Paradise Resort is going to quickly dissipate as teams are going to have to make the rotations through. But that bridge on the north side, just outside of Hatin, is going to be interesting because I feel like we're going to see teams like Seneca, like Humber, kind of camp it and wait for a team to rotate through. Meanwhile, here's my other favorite spot to look at here. Kent, a beautiful position on the south side of the circle. They have multiple teams now that need to rotate through them. And if they play this right with both the height advantage and positional advantage for them here, this could be a myriad of eliminations here for this Kent squad. And I think it's finally kicking off. Here comes Jacksonville, and here come the bullets.
Oh, is it going to be go time, though? Is it going to be go time, as they do see Viper just holding off on the edge there? The rest of the team from Jacksonville holding nice and steady, now looking to just disperse themselves, but the pressure is going to be on again. Not a lot of angles to be held here, but Jacksonville going to be looking to capitalize. I mean, only playing with a three-piece, that does limit the options ever so slightly, but I don't think they're going to be feeling all too phased here, as their spot is going to be looking for a bit of an opportunity. Maybe the name was inspired by Despacito, right? Who knows? But either which way, they're going to have to apply that pressure moving forward, because Kent, they will not relent, right? They're just going to hold nice and aggressive on the front line.
I mean, look, if you're any team to believe in yourself, I think Kent is probably the one to do so. They have proven in many different opportunities that they can win these fights, especially considering looks like it's going to be 3v4 here. Meanwhile, Humber apparently is proving they can as well. More eliminations popping up on the feed as they send another player packing. Jacksonville trying to join them as well, but again, it's positionally the issue here for Jacksonville. They know they have to rotate north into the circle. Meanwhile, Kent know the same thing. They're waiting for them to rotate in. You can see 5911 just kind of waiting at the edge of the zone there, just out on the back of a rock, and if they rotate through them, Jacksonville are going to have to go through an absolute hellfire as teams continue to rain from everywhere around them. So be careful here, Jacksonville. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, but if you delay this for too long, not only are you going to have to fight the opponents, but the blue's going to start ticking away at your health.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised to see Jacksonville not opting for that western bridge. I mean, it's there, it's available, they can take that opportunity, but I mean, it seems like they are just so determined and tunnel vision down onto what's Kent, and that is going to result in a few sprays finding their way on through, and this is exactly what Jacksonville does not want.
I mean, this is kind of inevitable. We knew this was going to happen, and unfortunately, that first player going down is going to make it all the rougher now for Jacksonville to try and recuperate. I'm not sure what the plan would be here. I'd agree with you. Rotate out. Try to find another position into the zone, but honestly, at a certain point, this could be sunken cost fallacy. It might be the idea that they've stuck to this for so long. They've dedicated themselves to this rotation. We're not going to back out now. Jacksonville, Maybe you should, because as you can see, the feed's starting to light up. Teams are starting to get aggressive, and if you hold on here for too long, someone else is going to rotate to this south side of the zone, and then your fight's not just going to be against Ken, it's going to be against the rest of the lobby. So finally, it looks like Jacksonville are going to opt for a different option. One player getting eliminated was enough of a signal for them to not stick any longer. And meanwhile, as we check in on Humber, apparently they are sticking around the bridge. That battle that we talked about has officially ensued.
Yeah, I don't know if this quite exactly counts rather as a bit of trolling coming through, but definitely looking to capitalize on the bridge as they do secure those eliminations, just easing out a lot of that contention. But they still have Romet to try and find out in the drink, and that is exactly what that comes through as Jackson nails it, slams shut in their face. But this is exactly the kind of setup that Humber is going to be looking for now, because now they've got free reign to move forward in towards the zone.
That was 2 birds, 1 stone there for Humber College. Not only do they eliminate Seneca and Fanshawe there, the teams in 2nd and 3rd place, but they get the eliminations themselves, meaning they are pulling further away from the pack. If this game ended right here and now, which is not going to, obviously, Humber would already add at least 7 more eliminations to their tally and pull further away from the rest of the competition. With Seneca and Fanshawe out at this point, it's really up to Centennial to maybe try and close that gap. They were at 27 points coming into this one, not even half the points of Humber. So, you know, our worst fears, or maybe our greatest hopes, depending on who you are finally coming to life here, as Humber truly are pulling away from the rest of our competition.
Well, it's all gonna remain to be seen, right? As we know, it ain't over until it's over. American River, though, with a beautiful setup in smack dab center zone, they can just look to capitalize on the mountains, capitalize on those lines of sight, and that could be exactly what we need to see to put Humber in a bit of a sweaty position, as we can see them now essentially being pinned down. But again, not the most difficult and challenging position for Humber to get themselves out of.
On top of that, they also have a player rotating around. We've seen this multiple times at a Humber now. They like to send one player to play a little bit sneaky while the rest of their team takes the attention. And if that one player can wrap around the backside of this American River College position, it do some real damage disorienting this entire team. I will say, American River, far and away in our best position right now. They have the top of this mountain, and not only do they have the top of it, they've got a lot of other teams around them that they've got lines of sight on. The issue for them, only part of this is in their zone, so they will be vulnerable for at least a moment as they rotate back a little bit. But as it stands right now, American River College, by far in the best position out of any of the teams left in this lobby.
Yep, they can just sit nice and comfortable up at the top there. In the meanwhile, we do see quite a bit of congestion now starting to develop down on towards the southwestern side as the pressure is going to come through on towards Kent. But again, Jacksonville now finding that rotation, getting themselves secured up into the zone, and now just absolutely laying waste into the side of Kent.
Kent were one of the only teams still up with all 4 of their players, and very quickly that changes here as all of a sudden Jacksonville get a little bit of revenge for before. 5911 though, not necessarily going to take all too kindly to that. Util dump as nades start getting flung down the hill as the bullets aren't quite penetrating the bark of that tree. Trying their best, and it's looking like it works out. A little bit delayed, but it seems Prince is the one to finish off the job as Jacksonville is sent packing and Kent State stay alive.
Well, a good defensive angle being held here by Kent. I mean, we're talking about the tree not being able to hit through the bark, and you can bark at that tree as much as you want, but it's not going to relent, right? Nothing is going to come through that. Now, Kent trying to get themselves back on their feet, trying to bring the whole 3-piece back into contention. But again, this is the opportunity now for a team like American River to try and maybe find a bit of that momentum, right? They have themselves in a bit of a tricky spot. Looking at where that zone has shifted, it does favor the living heck out of Kent here, but I mean, still a very strong play could be made. I mean, they are holding on to pretty tough numbers as well, so already looking at the kind of deterioration on the Humber side, it does look hopeful.
It looks hopeful, but at the same time, there's still multiple teams up that could throw a little bit of a wrench in this one, if you will. And Vodka right now, I'm throwing a little bit of a wrench in apparently some of the other teams there. They take one single player down from, I believe that was the Seneca White team that is currently up right now. And all of a sudden, Seneca starts to panic. They had a great position, and they let all of a sudden Orc rotate through, and now they've got the high ground on top of them. So again, American River, by far the most rotationally sound team we are watching at the moment here. They've got the high ground on pretty much everybody else around them. They're playing this one strategically, and Constoga are not. They are also eliminated. Another team bites the dust as we are down to our top 4.
Oh, we also did say goodbye to the side there of Humber, getting close on through. At least, though, managing some decent eliminations, as you said, right? It's going to make it even more challenging to catch up to them. But now, this is the opportunity for American River College to try and utilize every available position they have here. Of course, a beautiful line of sight right onto the side of the players from Kent. But again, not going to be easy whatsoever. Looking at the numbers, I mean, Kent and American River both still holding on to those 3 pieces.
I'm gonna say, it's impressive. Got players that are definitely focusing on staying up. Centennial, unfortunately, not going to be one of those teams that do exactly that. But this is kind of the strategies that we've seen clashing this entire time. We see players that just kind of straggle around here, Seneca White being that team, as they've tried to avoid fights best they can. They only have 3 eliminations. And then we've got American River, which continue to favor position over everything else. They have held on to this high ground since we had the zone pull over it. It's really only Kent State that I would say are the aggressive of the teams still left here. And if they can find an opportunity to send a player packing, they will. And they do it again. 5-9-1-1 takes out another player, and Kent continue to add on to their tally.
Cool, but I mean, looking at the setup coming through here for American River, right, this could be a bit of a honey trap, right? Because they have an angle and they know the rest of the teams are going to have to rotate up towards them. Now, I'm curious to see just how sweet they're going to try and make the situation, but Itachi up top, oh, does take quite a bit of damage, as does 5-9-1-1. But again, the blue zone is going to come rotating on forward. That is going to be the end of the road for 5. And now Harmon having to try and make that last-ditch effort play.
American River might not get credited with the elimination on that one, but they did very much forced it there. The zone eventually ticks away at Kent State, and they lose a player. They're down to only 2 remaining. Make that 1, and make Seneca also eliminated as well. Kent in a 3v1, but Daddy might have gotten overzealous. They drop off the top of the ridge here, and all of a sudden, it's now a 2v1. American River, you can't be doing that. You have to play this one safe. You have every advantage in the world in your favor.
Well, as we know, Prince has brought in quite a bit of a carry for their team, but now it's going to be the Tommy gun coming through here from Vodka, looking to punch all the way through. Itachi, though, falling to their demise. And now it's going to be 1v1, but up comes the spray. The trade is Vodka going to try and clutch this one out. American River so close, but down they go.
Kent State clutch it up. A 3v1 down to a 1v none. And somehow, some way, Kent State finally get the chicken dinner we had been waiting for all weekend long.
I mean, like, I'm at a loss of words, right? This is just such an insane clutch step up coming through there. I mean, a phenomenal play. Prince going to be taking our MVP position with the 5 elims and only 490 damage.
I'm willing to bet most of that 490 damage happened very much at the very end there. They do win that initial engagement. Again, we have that first player that drops down. They don't take too much damage, but they lose the one-on-one fight. Then all of a sudden, you have another player that's creeping up, but their teammate behind them takes too much damage from the drop-off, goes down, and Prince goes, oh, 1v1 versus a team that's been playing passively? Yes, please. Comes through, finishes off the job, and like we said, Kent finally get that winner chicken dinner they've been looking for the past 2 days.
I mean, what a strong play that was. But I'd say it's safe to say that the turning point for Kent came when Itachi fell off of that mountain, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is why things are so important. You got to watch those angles. But what a great opportunity here for Kent. I mean, locking in 1,427 damage with those 9 eliminations. I mean, that is a strong finish.
And it's not just a strong finish, it's a necessary one in my mind here. Again, Kent coming into this one, we're in 5th place overall with 23 points. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to absolutely tally up a little bit more. But the issue, like we were mentioning before, Humber might have gone down in 6th place overall, but those 7 eliminations are still going to give them a little bit of breathing room as we head out of our 5th match and into our 6th.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking about breathing room, right, you got to commend the effort being brought through by American River. As you can see there, the 4 eliminations all the way in that 2nd place, still adding to the tally. But of course, now speaking about tally, it is match ranking time and 19 points going to the side of Kent State.
That is huge, especially like we said, Seneca and Fanshawe went out early there in that 5th match. So for Kent State, who are already starting to catch up to them, to add another 15 or 19 points to the tally in comparison to, as you can see, a Seneca who only get 8, or actually not even, that's Seneca White. Seneca Red only got 2 points, and Fanshawe got none. So all of a sudden, the Kent State that we've been waiting to wake up all weekend to finally get into the top of our bracket, I think they might have done that here in this 5th match.
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes waking up a little bit later, rather, is better than never, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I think the big question is going to come in, has that been enough for them to still be in contention, right? To keep that pressure through? Because as we know previously, they came in starting at about that 5th place into this match. So this could be exactly the kind of performance that Kent State now needs to try and get to just elevate that position even further with regards to the standings.
Well, they've still got one more chance to do that in match number 6. But as we take a look back on match number 5, you can see exactly how this was a little bit different than some of our other games. It started off, honestly, we should have known it was chaos when Humber were literally driving in and immediately taking names and numbers. This team was out for blood against every single team that they faced, not only taking out the top 2 competition in Seneca and Fanshawe, but also still being able to get 7 eliminations despite going down early. So, again, overall, fantastic performance from every one of our teams, but that's kind of what is the issue. Everybody's feeling hot, and we only have one more match to play.
I mean, the heat is going to come through, but fortunately, moving into a map like Vikendi, right, it is going to potentially maybe cool things down with a little bit of snow, maybe even if it's just visual. But meanwhile, looking at the points, though, it is Humber securing himself 70 total points, a beautiful 9-point jump coming through from the previous one. But you got to commend the jump that has been brought in here by Kent. I mean, coming all the way back from where they were up to this is the kind of approach that we need to see follow through all the way to the very end.
I think that Kent, honestly, is the biggest turnaround of any of the teams we've seen so far. I believe yesterday there was a point where Kent was in either 8th or 9th place overall. Now they've jumped all the way up to 3rd place, but still have to hold on to it. Like you said, they're looking good, but Seneca didn't necessarily perform in that last one. Fanshawe, which was in, I believe, 3rd place overall, drops to 5th. They're not going to be happy about that. So, yeah, look, I'm glad you guys did well in Sandhawk. You better keep that up going into Vikendi, or this is going to be a problem. Multiple teams here starting to look good going into our final match of the day. PUBG Mobile Campus Championships only have one match to go. And DK, at this point, I don't know who I'm expecting to take this one.
I think I'm right there with you, right? I mean, what we would expect to see is a team like Kent or potentially even Seneca Red really applying so much pressure moving into this last match. Because looking at the point situation, I mean, 25, that is going to be quite a bit of a stretch. Try and secure all those points. But if the focus is there, if the determination is there, they're going to have to play one absolutely insane game, right? I mean, we're looking at about 15 eliminations as well as that winner-winner chicken dinner. Anything in that ballpark could secure them the victory, but it's all going to be reliant on whether or not Humber College is going to be looking to dial up that heat.
They have to at this point, and you guys have to pay attention to the stream even more closely. Again, we're giving away codes all day long. If you guys want some UC of your own, maybe pay attention to the codes about to flash across the screen right here and now. They are one and done, so as long as you can redeem that before anybody else says, boom, there it is, you might be able to walk away just a little bit richer, a little bit extra in your inventory here, or you can head on over to the NACE Twitter if you want more information and maybe another chance to get involved. At NACE Star League on Twitter, we're giving away another 10 more codes for even more UC, 600 per code, and all you got to do is retweet their post. So head on over to the NACE Star League Twitter if you guys want to get even more involved in this giveaway, or pay attention. We've got more codes to give away before we end this broadcast. And speaking of which, we're not at the end yet. We got to take a quick break, but when we return, it will be our final match of the day here for the Campus Championships. Not going to want to miss it. Stay tuned. Oliver Bass, it's DK. It's the Campus Championship here for PUBG Mobile for North America 2023, and it is our very last match. We've got one more map to go. We head back on over to Vikendi to wrap up this competition, and truly, DK, it has been a competition throughout the whole weekend.
Oh man, it's been sweaty, it's been hot, it's been uncomfortable, but that is exactly what we want to see come through in PUBG, right? The teams keeping true to what is expected, and I gotta love it. But you know what, Bass? I want to say something. I think we need to go fishing for a bit of action, right? As we are prepping up for the play into Vikendi. I mean, the last Vikendi we saw the teams taking a bit of a different approach. I want to see them dial it up because it's the last match of the event. Might as well just go out guns blazing.
I mean, yesterday, they were still kind of, ramping up to it, if you will. It's match number 2 of the day. They're still trying to make sure that they can get their feet wet, but not necessarily not be able to wade. They want to be able to swim in the river, not drown within it. This time, they have to make sure that they leave it all out on the table, though. This is your last and final chance. If you can't get it done in match 6, you have to get it done in 2024, our last match here for the Campus Championship. And at this point, there's one team that everybody has their eyes on. It is Humber College. 70 total points. They are 4 and away in first place. The goal for a lot of these teams is not just going to be catching up to them, but placing top 4 at all. $5,000 on the line here for this Campus Championship. And if you can at least get into the top 4, you'll take a little bit of that home. So for the rest of the teams who maybe can't overtake Humber here, it's about even getting into that top 4. Our top 4 right now, Humber College, Seneca College, Fanshawe, and then Centennial. Or actually, excuse me. I have that a little bit backwards. It is actually Humber College, Seneca, then Kent State, and then Centennial, not Fanshawe. Fanshawe basically switched with Kent State in this moment. So those teams try to hold on to their positions within the top 4. And DK, if they can't, it's going to be a rough road ahead.
Yeah, I think the challenge is going to come through, especially enough for Seneca, Red, and of course Kent State, to see who's going to be either making a run for pole position or looking to dominate themselves into second. Because based on the performance that they've been bringing out so far, I mean, it has been quite impressive, especially looking at what the teams have had to work with, right? Going from Erangel, Vikendi, a little bit of that Sanok action. We've even played a bit of Miramar, but it's all going to come down to the very last game.
One more match, and also one more code to give away. We're not done yet, guys. We still have some gifts for y'all at home, including our very last code of the day. If you haven't been paying attention, we've been giving away UC all weekend long. Giving away 5 codes yesterday, 5 codes today, and now here's the final one. Flashing across the screen here, it's going to be first come, first serve. If you can put this in to your PUBG Mobile, you'll get yourself a little bit of reward. But if you're a bit too slow, don't worry. It's actually not your last chance. It might be your last chance to redeem one here on broadcast, but if you head on over to the Nace Twitter, we got even more chances there. At Nace Star League on Twitter, we're giving away another 10 codes, 10 more chances to win yourself 600 UC. All you have to do is retweet their post about that. So head on over to at Nace Star League on Twitter if you want another chance to get involved in the action. And well, the action is just about to commence here. Like we said, we have one last match to go. You mentioned it being a little bit of a different map than some of what we've seen here today. Not like Miramar, not like Sandhawk. What do teams need to do here, DK, if they want to give themselves the best chance possible to get some points and finish top 4?
I mean, obviously the name of the game is going to be aggression, right? But I think the big thing is they got to have to hope and pray that the first initial zone shift is not going to be as aggressive as it can be. I mean, sometimes Vikendi is just, it's got it out for the teams, right? We've seen it pull hard east, hard west. I mean, it's been pretty aggressive at times. But, I mean, let's be honest, so far from what we've seen in this event, Vikendi has been kind to them. So, aside from zone troubles that could potentially be coming in, I want to see the teams really focus on those rotations, get themselves properly set up well in advance of any potential rotations. Again, we want to see those transitional areas getting blocked up because that is going to allow for quite a few of the eliminations then to get secured.
I mean, that's what we saw at a Humber in the last one. We talked about that. The Northwest Island is really where we ended up on Sandhawk there, and it ended up pulling straight over a bridge, which they were basically able to control. Seneca were able to Humber were not only able to wipe out 2 teams, but it was the 2 teams closest to them in terms of points. So they gave them a huge barrier in that 5th game. Now here in the 6th, I'd have to agree with you, but if time is, if history's anything to dictate here at this point, it's probably going to be another West Zone. Vikendi, our final match of the weekend. Will Humber College just clear away against the competition, or do we see some of our teams slowly creep up and catch up to them? It's time to find out. Will it pull west? Will we get a central zone? What will happen? All we know is it is the last hurrah. Vikendi gonna be the home and place to end this campus championship.
Yeah, 100% true. But as we know, right, looking back at the past weekend that we saw just yesterday, was the map in which we saw Kiro just popping off, right, picking up 8 eliminations as a solo. So that really sets the bar of what we could expect to see comes through here. But again, right, Humber, they are the top performer from what we had yesterday with regards to this map. So I'm hoping for a bit of a challenge. I mean, American River also held a very contentious play, finishing in second with 5 eliminations. I mean, that is a good run. But now they're going to have to try and maybe play a bit of an upset here. This is the power of the other teams, right? They have the opportunity to decide who will be allowed to lock in those eliminations and who won't.
Honestly, I'm not really sure at this point who I'm necessarily going to be paying attention to start this game. Like you said, those eliminations are going to be extremely valuable, but I feel like a couple of teams might have to switch up their approaches here. Like you said, American River are usually very, very passive team. I need to get a little bit aggressive here. And for some of our more aggressive teams, i.e. maybe a Humber, maybe you don't get as aggressive here. Maybe you do give a little bit of time and reprieve for teams to work with. Either way, we will find out. We do find ourselves with a flight path going north to south this time. Crazy how yesterday was pretty much only west to east. Today we've had basically north to south with a little bit of east to west in there. It's been a very different day, and it's honestly going to be a very different drop overall here. A lot more teams heading to that west side of the map. They better hope the circle favors them.
Yeah, let's find out, right? We are going to be knowing pretty soon exactly what these teams will have to work with. But again, you got to appreciate the spread coming through as the teams seem to be peeling off into their own respective directions. I mean, this time around, we could see Villa receiving a little bit of love, aka even maybe the side there of Tuvar. But, you know, the Spurgeons are going to be trickling their way on down onto the map. Ooh, we might have a bit of a hot drop there as we got 3 teams now pulling up in towards Villa and the surrounding area. And that is exactly what we want to see, right? Regardless of the snow, the teams are going to be looking to melt a bit of that as they look to get right down to business.
I'm trying to figure out how many teams are in the middle of Villa right now. It literally is too congested on the map for me to be able to discern who is there. I'm seeing, I think, 3 teams, potentially 4. By the way, keep your eyes peeled and keep your eyes posted onto Villa here, as it looks like we're already getting into the action. Jacksonville wasting no time. They recognize other players around them, and they're just maybe trying to send warning shots. I'm not sure. Kind of saying, hey, keep your distance. We're not up for this yet.
I mean, let's be honest, right? Villa is known for the sweaty plays that could be held right here. But looking at the side of Jacksonville, I mean, they were performing quite well on the previous weekendy as well, so they should be no strangers to this. But, I mean, Centennial B, this could be the opportunity to maybe sneak in a few of those eliminations because we are yet to see them really flourish on any of our matches.
Yeah, we really haven't seen them show up all too much. We've seen them get an elimination here or there, but the big thing for them is that they need to make a big push here in our final match of the weekend if they even want a chance to kind of shake up that leaderboard. And again, leaderboard that you're focusing on is our top 4 overall. Top 4 teams going to walk away with some cashola at the end of this one. So you got to hope that you can at least be able to put your name on that tally. And right now for Centennial, just looking to take a couple names and numbers from this Jacksonville squad in front of them. Oh, somebody's there. They can hear them. They can pay attention and see that the bullets have been firing out of this building. Question is, where in this building does this team lie? Jordy right now. See if they can find any sort of line of sight on this team. Jacksonville, a good job, though. Credit where it's due. They're staying away from this team despite knowing that they are surrounding this building.
Yeah, that a lot of trigger discipline coming through here as well. I mean, now it's up to Jacksonville to see if they can maybe lure them in, right? Trying to create a bit of an opportunity, but Shorty Bay just holding over on towards the edge. We got Snake also just trying to see if they can maybe find that approach to take. But that's it, right? Centennial B only coming through with a 3-piece, so that does put them on a slight bit of a back foot. But now they're going to have to work so much harder to try and secure themselves those eliminations. And this being Villa, it's not going to be an easy compound to breach. But boy, I do hope that they are ready for the action.
I also have to be ready for the other teams that are going to probably eventually join them here, as we now find ourselves with not only the first zone poll officially, but on top of that, couple other teams outside of Villa here. Just a little bit south of them is that Humber College squad we've warned about many times. They've been the Grim Reaper for pretty much every team they've encountered. You don't necessarily want to make too much noise at Villa, otherwise you start getting other teams involved. So for Centennial or Jacksonville here, my advice, get this done quicker rather than later, as if you do wait too long, you're going to start to attract the attention of people you don't want the attention of.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more right with that. So a little bit of caution needs to be brought through. Maybe a little bit of a swift action as well, right? Get it down to business, get out of there, because as we can see, we do have Humber now on the approach, starting to encircle this Villa position. So if they wait too long, I believe that it is very probable, highly likely, that Humber is going to help them on their merry way. And I mean, the way that they're going to be helped is not the way that they would want to.
I gotta say, Humber, though, just look at the rotations for this team. We've talked about it today. They're really good at this bait and switch, of trying to get the attention based on one player who they want you to focus on, while the other players rotate around to get a little bit of a pincer maneuver. And as you guys can see, there is a player that they've designated to not even take this fight at Villa. They got Kahardi all the way to the east, just on the very edge of zone. So the goal right now for Humber might not necessarily be winning this firefight, but pushing this team out of Villa towards the zone, forcing their rotation and forcing them into their trap. It's a good idea if you're Humber, but you just gotta make sure that you execute correctly, because similar to what we were talking about here, Villa not just occupied by these two teams, but the other teams surrounding it. If Humber isn't quick about this, you can have one of the teams from the north drop out of Gorka into them, or one of the teams, particularly Kent, go north from Abbey straight on into you guys. So right now, Villa hotly contested, kind of the central zone for everybody to pay attention to, as it's not even in the zone, and it's still probably the most hotly contested spot on the map, and the fight has finally begun.
There we go, Centennial rather now looking for a bit of a breach. The angle, but Snake is down. This does put Shorty in quite a bit of a disadvantage as Bay now tries to rush her forward to secure the spray. Ooh, picks up two. No. Oh, down they go. Well, you got to commend Centennial B. I mean, they tried. They really did try to get the rush into Villa.
They tried their best, but the issue is that now for Jacksonville, you're just kind of left a little bit short-handed here. You're just finding yourself with already players down and a Humber who are hungry. 3 eliminations for Kiddu, and Jacksonville, unfortunately, eliminated without a chance here in their final game of the day.
I mean, talk about capitalizing on the opportunity at hand. I mean, they just stepped in, they wait patiently in the wing, and then Humber come rushing forward just to pick up the last few scraps here. I mean, that is a beautiful tactic being played by them. But now, again, rotation needs to come through. They need to find a bit of a position. But in the meanwhile, we do see American River and other players that coming through from Manitoba, prepping for a bit of an altercation up in towards Port Vosto.
You know, there's a couple of teams rotating out of that north side towards Cosmodrome if they can get there, but at the moment, it just kind of feels like everybody starting to make that long haul towards the circle. I mean, honestly, we kind of should have expected this. We've had 2 zones that have pulled as far west as possible. Why don't we have one that pulls east to end us off here? Multiple teams having to make the long migration across this map in order to find a safe spot. Unfortunately for American River, despite being in the zone, like you said, they are not in a safe spot. Manitoba right on top of them. We gotta have another battle inside of these cities ensue.
I think it's safe to say that they are going to be tried, they are going to be tested, and, well, we're going to be looking to see if they will be resulted in being capable of defending themselves, right? I mean, a little bit of a push coming through here as American River now on the edge. Very grouped up together, so this is not exactly the approach that you want to take. I mean, one utility could really spell quite a bit of a disaster here. But let's see if Manitoba will be thinking of that as we can see. Ooh, a quick bit of a defensive play, but DBS is going to slap the door shut as they lose one, but Danny, though, gets traded.
Oh, this is big, though. Manitoba aren't at necessarily full power here. They still have a player rotating in from the north, and they've got another player down. Misrotation there is out of nowhere. Manitoba find themselves completely out of this one. Goodbye, go home. Itachi finishes the job, and American River get an aggro here in game number 6.
I mean, that is the kind of play that we live for, right? American River just, floating them on down. That is the end of the road. Gotta love it. But now, yeah, they could get contested, as we do have the side there of Humber. Now, maybe drawn into a little bit of that temptation. Again, still quite a few positions available here for teams to play at. But let's see whether or not American River can actually defend yet against another team.
I'm glad that we're having a shout out to production for panning down just a little bit on the map to give us that look. Yeah, for a second there I was wondering, did Kent State all of a sudden go down when we weren't noticing? No, they're literally just as far away from the circle as they can right now at the very southern part of the map outside a winery. I would imagine the rotation is going to be going across the bridge towards Hot Springs and Contra and then rotating up towards Cement Factory. But at this point, Kent State does need to hustle because it's not just necessarily that they're going to miss out on the action. They're going to miss out on the eliminations. Humber adding to their tally, other teams dropping like flies. If they don't get into this circle quick, there's going to be no eliminations left on the table for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to find themselves a beautiful serving of a bit of that humber pie coming in. But meanwhile, American River now having to defend as they will get rushed upon. Ooh. Again, not such an easy position to try and play off of, but they are going to be trying to make the most out of the situation. But you have to commend the effort coming through here from Humber. Just looking to capitalize on each and every available opportunity.
I'm a little bit scared for American River, though. They're not exactly holding this building well. Yeah, they had the high ground on top of the building, but instead they kind of don't hold on to their choke points. There was that entrance around the side of that wall where they definitely knew somebody would have to come through. But instead, in one-on-one engagements, they are all panicking while Humber are cool as ice cubes right now. They are not under any pressure, and they recognize all they have to do is finish the job, and they will wipe out yet another squad. Easier said than done, though, because Rolex does take out one, and American River take out another. Itachi's got one more. Humber had the advantage, but all of a sudden, the tables are flipped, and they've got to be careful.
Oh, American River now needs to keep their eyes on the prize. Now with Rolex down, they still have a two-piece to contest this play. It's all going to be down to Vodka and Itachi looking to see if they can get the job done. But now they need to strike, because if we see those raises coming through... No, actually, it's done.
They're gone. Humber down and out of match number 6 extremely early. Look, it's gonna have to take the performance of a lifetime for one of these teams to catch up to Humber, but now all of a sudden the door is open.
Wow, I mean, who would have been able to predict that just based on the performance at Humber, the momentum that Humber were bringing in here? I mean, I thought they had it in the bag, right? But you gotta love the upset, the action, the plays that are coming through. And this opens up, as you said, the opportunity for the rest of the teams now to try and capitalize and bring in that lifetime performance.
I think there's a couple of teams we've got to pay attention to, but if you're a smart player, which I think that they are, this is a signal for Kent State in particular to get on your horses and start riding. That team was outside the action, outside of the pressure earlier, but if they want the ability to catch up now to Humber, they need eliminations along with the chicken dinner. Just that win alone, I don't think is going to be enough to pass. So if you are a Seneca, if you are a Kent State, if you are a Centennial, if you are Fanshawe, that is the signal. Get going, get riding, get into the action, because it's time, now or never, if you want a share of that $5,000 prize.
Well, there's no way of disagreeing with that fact, but I mean, looking at their position all the way down south, they have quite a bit of trekking to do, and you can see the points at the top of the score as well, right? They are trailing by 35. So closing up with 35, I don't see that happening anytime soon, right? That is taking quite a bit of a chance, but they can definitely look to rectify whatever they can with regards to those leaderboards, looking to get themselves positioned up into that second place, because as we know, right, jumping from first all the way down to fourth, there's a $500 jump between each position, so you can definitely try and capitalize as best as you can find your way through here. And now with the addition of Seneca Red being under a little bit of pressure coming through here from Conestoga, that could be especially what they are looking at.
If you are any of the teams outside of that top 5, your goal here is to just kind of run ruin. Like literally just upset everybody. Make that little wrench that annoys teams. If you are a team within that top 4, that top 5, you are paying attention to the leaderboard as carefully as possible and making sure that teams, when they go down, when there's an opportunity, you take advantage. If Kent State sees Seneca out, it's huge for them. If Seneca sees another team out, they could just get some points, and indeed they do. Conestoga out of this game and out of this competition for the final time as Seneca Red sees the opportunity.
Oh man, what a beautiful play that is. Seneca Red now looking to close it up. 4 eliminations to their name, and there could be several more yet to come, as we do see even more victims potentially moving up to them. But we are still waiting to see what Kent are going to be bringing to this battlefield, right? Are we going to see that insane rush coming through from that far southern edge? Because surely they should have eyes on that feed as well.
Should have eyes on it, but again, seen them play with this passivity for a while now. Yesterday, they came in and got punished off of drop multiple times, taking early engagements that would come back to bite them, as they would either lose a player or lose the engagement entirely. This time today, Kent have played this one carefully, and it is why we are talking about them so much. From going outside of our top 5 to 2nd and 3rd place overall, they are barely on the edge of guaranteeing themselves some money, but first, they've got to take out the competition. Seneca still in this one. I believe that Centennial is still in this as well, and I think Fanshawe is as well. So a lot of teams around them that could still take that spot from them, so they need to start getting involved in the action sooner rather than later. And speaking of action, it's slowed down a little bit. Couple teams drop, and all of a sudden everybody just kind of takes a step back and goes, look, we'll wait till we see where the next circle pulls.
I mean, you were talking about the players there from Fanshawe, right? We can see them just held over towards the northwestern side of Seneca Red. So the opportunity is there, right? The teams are close enough, but now we can see Kent also starting to draw in much, much closer. And this is just going to add to the suspense, add to the pressure. And I mean, we also have then the players from Centennial holding onto that smack dab center zone. So again, so many territories to play off of here. But where will this next zone take us?
At this point, all we can really do is wait. Bated breath at this point as well, because it feels like if one team starts firing, it's going to be a signal. Guys, you have an entire circle to work with. Yet everybody seems to want to converge around this little spot just underneath Peshkova. And I don't know if that's a great idea. The only team I could see on that map that wasn't getting into this little trifecta of houses was American River. And honestly, they're living up to the name. They're on the other side of the river, all the way to the west. Meanwhile, the other 5 teams in this lobby are literally next to each other.
I mean, I don't even know what to make of this, right? I mean, American River might be presented with a good opportunity here, seeing that they are so distant from the chaos. But again, right, they are missing out on those eliminations, as you pointed out before. Now, it is going to be go time, as the rest of the lobby is going to be converging down onto each other. Who's going to be the one to survive? We don't know, but that's why we're here. We are looking to find out who will be making that play for either 2nd, 3rd, or 4th place.
We have 22 available players still up and at 'em right now, meaning that if you are Kent State, that is 18 potential points on the board here. If you are Seneca, you've already found yourself 4. There's another 18 on top of that, 22 potential points that you guys could finish off the job and jump up the leaderboard exponentially. But again, there are no guarantees. Even Fanshawe, who despite not having an elimination in this game, could get a couple here or there to start to climb up. It's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's a lot of theorizing, but that's all that we can do as we wait for the charge to happen. 20 seconds until the next circle closes and we figure out where these teams are going to have to migrate. I feel like as soon as we do see that next circle pop, that's when all the firefights start to happen.
Well, speaking about firefights, right, we do have American River also now on the approach, right? They are slowly prepping themselves up for a bit of a push. I think they are just going to be waiting to see what that zone is going to be bringing in, as we will find out very, very shortly. Ooh, look at that. Look at that shift. And this is now the opportunity for a team like American River to get themselves situated and look to cause a bucket load of mayhem.
They are in the perfect position right now. Everybody getting pushed out of Peshkova and now have to rotate towards that river that American River are holding perfectly. The only issue for them American River College only have 2 players up. So despite the fact that everybody is going to have to rotate into them, they can't afford to have either one of their players drop, or all of a sudden, it's a pretty high likelihood they will lose the engagement. So good positioning for Arc right now, but everybody else has their full squad up, so they might be at a numbers advantage, except Seneca, all of a sudden, Fury goes down, and it looks like we might have a couple teams finally starting to get into the action.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Maybe it's a bit of that snowball effect, right? I mean, anything can go. It is Vikendi at the end of the day, but I love the sprays. Continue to just line up as Centennial is going to be looking to capitalize. Seneca waiting on the opposite end of this wall, reduced down to a 2-piece, trying to make that last attempt, the last play, but unfortunately, things not exactly working out for them. Let's see whether or not Vampire can draw a bit of blood. They send out the utility, but now looks to disengage and maybe play for the long game.
He's recognizing the stakes that are at hand right now. And what is at hand is your final opportunity of the entire day. And Vampire does not want to go down in a whimper. They'd rather go out with a last hurrah. So they're going to try and stay in this game as long as possible. Rotate far away from the rest of the competition. They are actually more or less the only person on that northwest side of the zone. So Vampire, you've made the right decision. You are far away from the rest of the competition, and even if your other teammates start to get picked off, you will at least carry the torch. Huge plays out of Seneca White there. That is going to absolutely be crucial to their survival.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of pressure now going to come through here for Vampire. They're going to have to wing it to some extent, right? Seeing that the stakes are so high. But, you know, maybe we could have a very fantastic performance going through on that. And meanwhile, it's going to be Kent now focusing their efforts down onto Seneca. And I love this trade. I mean, both teams in a position of power. But who's going to be the one to capitalize as that zone is going to be shifting yet again, but now sticking onto the eastern side of the zone?
It's getting really weird. These zone polls continue to take these teams into odd positions. It has now, though, come to the disadvantage of American River College. Finally, they're going to have to get pushed over that river. The worst part for them, or at least in my eyes, is they've got one of two options. Either they take that south bridge, run straight on into Seneca, or they take that north bridge and run straight on into Centennial. There's not really a good option for them either way. So for American River right now, best of luck to you. Whoever you end up running into is going to be prepared for the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point the option is to barge into any kind of position at the, you know, because I mean, there's not much to work with at this point. Again, the zone doing what it does here when it comes to the lovely Vikendi map, but a lot of pressure now going to be held up towards the north and the south. So yeah, I mean, American River and of course Vampire, they have a very, very difficult decision to make at this point.
I think, honestly, if you are American River, you might be trying to pick off that straggler just to get a couple more points. Again, 7 points off of eliminations already is huge for them. Add one more, get a couple of placements. Who knows how you're going to end up here? The issue is for them is that their direct competition is all still in this game. We talked about this. Humber, far and away our number 1, but number 2, 3, and 4, those spots that would earn you some money, every team in contention for them is still around. American River came into this one in 7th position, but their competition above them are pretty much all around. The only team outside of that 7th to 2 zone that has gone down was Conestoga. Otherwise, Seneca still up. Kent State still up. Centennial still up. Fanshawe still up. We have multiple teams now within our top 5 that are still around and still kicking, which means that this is going to get chaotic, especially if Vampire gets the drop. This could all of a sudden turn on its head for the Solo Ranger.
Oh, yes, it definitely can. But I mean, with 4 squads coming through here with a full lineup, that is going to cause quite a bit of a sweaty play. But now American River taking that plunge as they do rotate in towards the zone. Again, looking at Centennial A here, a very quiet position, especially looking at that location. But they are going to get tested pretty soon. Meanwhile, American River now just rushing on forward. The sprays coming through as Seneca Red looks to capitalize. And all they're going to work with now is a bit of vodka.
Vodka has been a problem for many teams here today, though. We've seen them clutch it up more than once, and they do it here. It would honestly be the biggest clutch up we've seen all weekend. Here comes Dev, looking to ambush them. They've got the advantage, and they'll finish the job. One shotgun shot is all it took, and Arc are out.
Well, I mean, that DBS just being so dang devastating. But in the meanwhile, we are down to our final few squads, right? It is going to be still a very tough spread looking at that zone positioning, especially seeing that the zone has continued with that eastward shift. And again, all the outliers need to get themselves situated. And the only team currently holding on is going to be Seneca, right? Or Centennial, rather. They're the only team currently in the zone. And so they have quite a bit of opportunity.
Gotta be careful if you are one of those teams on the outside of zone, especially I would say Kent in this current position. They've got a team to the north of them hugging the edge of zone. They got a team to the south of them hugging that west side of the zone. So honestly, it's not a bad idea. I think what they're doing right now is they're sending a couple players up in a vehicle, try and scout around, see if maybe they can find a place to hold on to. Might have found one though. Does look like Prince be able to just hide behind that rock. They have signaled to multiple other teams where they are. All of a sudden, the push starts here. Kent State got to call in the reinforcements and get their other players around them, or it's going to be a 2v4 for the two stragglers that have pushed up further. And I think it is going to be that, but all of a sudden, wait a minute. Centennial, do they have Seneca in a pinch here? They might have them surrounded.
Oh, that could be the play. That could be the play to make indeed. But of course, this just on top of the cave. So there is several positions to play at here. I mean, the teams could either dip inside or look to play on top. So many options. But let's see what the play is going to be, though. The position is going to be receiving a bit of that constriction coming through as we have everyone now pushing forward, trying to play for that positioning. Even Vampire just inching onto the edge of zone.
If you are Vampire, you're deciding which one of these guys' days you're going to ruin, basically. You're looking to just get a random pick from a distance, pick off one player, give your team at least a little bit of confidence, and give another team a nightmare scenario that they have to recover from. Imagine if this works out! They need maybe one more shot, Vampire. If you can get one more bullet to contact, Centennial have to panic, as out of nowhere, one of their 4 players will go down. Oh, instead.
Oh man, I mean Vampire tried, right? But the spray was just it was just there. And unfortunately, well, we are now down to our final few, right? As the zone is going to be delivering quite a challenge to these teams. I mean, looking at the positioning, there is nothing really to be had here. There's no hard cover. There's nothing but trees and boulders to try and hide behind.
This is crazy how we came down to this. We were talking about how it was going to be a battle for 2nd through 4th to end this day. It is quite literally a battle of 2nd through 4th right now. We have team number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 still up going into our very last circles of the competition. And honestly, I don't know who's at the advantage. Yes, Kent State have a great position right now, but they have a player down. Seneca might be at the top right now with the most eliminations, but they are also without a player. Centennial is doing great. Fanshawe also doing great. They've got their entire team up, but Fanshawe have no eliminations. At this point, it is anybody's competition to take.
Yep, that's pretty much the situation. Oh, Kent now going to have yet another knock come their way, and this does really apply quite a bit of pressure as 5911 is down. Harmon rather could be looking to dispatch off that hole. A little bit of a situation there, but now applying so much pressure, looking to see whether or not they can secure the plays, as Fanshawe are going to be applying quite a bit of a situation here. Again, they know Kent has to push through to get themselves situated and safely secured in that zone. But where will they go? Because again, no many options remain.
There really aren't any options here. All the safe spots that they have had for a while just really have dissipated quickly as the zone continues to close. 4 teams somehow still alive in this one, but I feel like that number is going to dwindle very quickly. The teams start to advance forward. It is still in my mind that team up top, Centennial, have had the best position. Although Kent at moments have, they just keep getting caught off guard, but they're going to get an elimination because of it. There we go. Finally getting one at 599, or 5911, getting on the board, but gets taken out in return by Vortex. Prince returns fire. All of a sudden, Vortex also returns fire. Players starting to drop, and all of a sudden, the only full team now still around is Centennial.
Oh, but it's going to be go time. Now it is time for heavy defense. No, that is Kent getting swept under the rug. Down they are. And the final 3 teams now left to contest. But looking at these numbers, things are looking pretty grim. Right, Fanshawe down to 1. We got Seneca Red holding quite steady on 3 players. But Centennial A still sitting with a full squad, as you pointed out. They are now going to be looking to dominate the rest of the zone.
Not only are they sitting with a full squad, they're sitting with a full squad with 8 eliminations. This team racking up the points necessary here and taking away the competition. Fanshawe officially out of our final match here of the competition. It is down to 2 teams only. Seneca Red versus Centennial, and this could be make or break. These 2 teams, both within the top 4 right now. This could determine who walks away with a grand share of that total prize.
Well, it is going to be a very sweaty one as the nade comes in. This is Centennial's opportunity to push, to apply that pressure, to lock in the victory. And with that, the points, you can see it is a very, very tough run at the top of that leaderboard. But now, Centennial, they have the opportunity to expand, sitting on those double-digit elims already. And now, will Seneca Red look to oppose them?
Trying shots from a distance, ARs in hand, but they can't seem to find the line of sight. Finally, they do, and in 2 seconds, Onion will take out their opponent. It is down to 1 last Seneca player, and they are hiding in the cave. I don't know if they're going to find them, but I hate to tell you this. Just from a numbers advantage alone, I feel like Centennial might just be able to outlast this Seneca player.
I mean, a little bit of spelunking could come through as well, right? Who knows if Centennial A are going to be looking to maybe go fishing down below. I mean, we're about to hit that 9th stage as well, right? So there's going to be no more zone closure coming through. It's going to be nothing but blue. So there's only one way out, right? Either by the blue or by a little bit of lead that could be finding its way. So Dev, yeah, this is the biggest case of hide and seek that we've seen come through for this event so far.
Yeah, it looks like they are going to at least try and figure out where this player is. I think that Vortex has figured out that they're probably in the cave below, but kind of comes down to, do they want to take that risk? The blue taking away health and an aggressive rate right now. So they're kind of wondering, is the zone going to pull over them to where they're safe? And it's going to force Dev out of this little hidey hole? Or is Dev just going to be able to outlast them? At this point, ending off this game with a whimper rather than a huge explosion. I think the reality is setting in here for Seneca. They needed a big game to hold off Centennial, and with Centennial not only hitting double-digit eliminations, but also at least guaranteeing themselves one of the top 2 placements, this might just be enough for Centennial to grab some cash and walk home a victor.
Well, that could be the play. I mean, also getting signed out with 6 elims to their name is not going to be a bad run whatsoever. But Centennial will be denied that that full dozen eliminations, right? Ending on 11. And that is going to be the end of the road, as we are now just left with a bit of a heel down. 10 meds on board. The blue zone going to be ramping up the damage, and it is go time. But who knows? I mean, Dev might still be able to survive this one because the blue zone now starting to do its thing. As Centennial A is starting to feel that sting. Oh, Dev might still clutch this one out.
Dev has a chance to heal off in their favor, but only for a moment longer. Eventually, Seneca will bite the dust, and Centennial will take our final winner chicken dinner of the weekend. 11 total eliminations for this team. This might be enough to punch their ticket into the money.
Yeah. That might exactly be it. I mean, like 1,773 damage. That is a very, very respectable finish. I mean, this came really, really close to the end. I mean, just imagine if Dev was able to stay alive for just a few moments longer. It would have been such an insane story. But you got to commend Onion, though, for finishing up with 4 eliminations and 500 plus damage.
He was incredible. Onion was fantastic the whole way through. We had talked about this player a couple of times throughout the weekend, and while we hadn't mentioned their name many times today, in this final game, they showed a clutch factor that was undeniable. The Centennial team challenged in multiple different occasions, yet they continue to come out on top. Onion with 4 eliminations, with a team total racked up 11. 1,700 damage, another 1,300 on top of what Onion did alone. Vortex, Potato, and Hod, take a bow. You guys earned this victory.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to fault on that. But let's take a look at the top 4 teams. You can see not only Centennial, but we got American River also finishing exceptionally strong. I mean, 8 eliminations, even though they got taken out in 6th place. I mean, 1,200 damage. That is a very healthy dose of aggression being shown.
Now, I gotta say, it might just be enough to punch their ticket through to some money as well, but the issue is we're not exactly sure. Eliminations are great, so are placement points, but with the plethora of them amongst multiple different teams, who knows how this one could go. I'll tell you this much, despite the fact that Humber get 8th place, they still get 5 eliminations, so credit to them. They'll pop up on our highlights, and, well, they will pop up here on our match rankings overall. They do manage themselves 5th most points out of any of the teams participating, which I imagine pulls them away, with Centennial earning a total of 21. I think that's enough to maybe even punch them into 2nd place here, DK.
Oh, I mean, there's one thing I do know at this point, right, is don't trust custom math, right? We gotta wait until we see those numbers being shown on screen because, you know, if we don't have calculators in our hands, it does prove to be quite challenging, but a phenomenal performance regardless. I mean, Seneca Red, 12 points, Arc, the American River Carnage, they're locking in double-digit points. I mean, it is so comfy to see that. I mean, Fanshawe only being capable of capitalizing on placement points, but it's not going to be the end of the day. Meanwhile, looking at these graphic graphs, these damage graphs rather, I mean, American River as well as Seneca Red just really finding so much carnage.
They're continually getting involved in fight. American River, I don't think it was necessarily their choice to do that. I think they were forced into firefight after firefight, engagement after engagement. But they were winning pretty much all of them up until that one faithful one against, I believe, Humber. But it's how it goes. Sometimes the cookie is going to crumble not in your favor. But for Arc here, it's got to feel good that they at least exit out of this competition with probably their best performance yet, with 8 eliminations and 1,200 damage. Meanwhile, Centennial, I would say, do the same. 1,700 damage, 11 eliminations. That is by far their best performance throughout this whole weekend.
Yeah, that's good to see, though. I mean, of course, taking a look back at a few amazing plays that we had. You got to commend the efforts that we had here. I mean, Centennial B, they tried to defend as best they possibly could, but it just proved to be such a play. And then it was exactly at this point where Jacksonville also then got rushed, as Humber just looked to play the momentous angles. But we did see them get taken out. I mean, that was such a surprise. I mean, we thought that Humber were going to be the runners here in this game, really just capitalizing on everything as they push forward.
I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would almost always say that Humber is going to come out on top. They continually are such a solid team in these individual engagements, yet today, apparently they were bested. It's a rare thing. It doesn't happen often, but apparently here in Game 6, it did. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to shake up the leaderboard enough to where they're going to be usurped for that #1 position, but it definitely created an environment for a chaotic and incredible end to this campus championship. Game number 6 really was chaos, from the one-shot shotgun shots we saw out of there from Deb to Vampire, putting a thorn in the side of those final teams. This was a jam-packed final circle all the way to the bitter end.
Yeah, but of course, Dev comes so close to clutching it out. But here we go. We're taking a look at the boards, though. I mean, the numbers still just looking to rack up. And I mean, what a tough push this has been so far.
This has been an incredible competition, but it should come as no surprise. Humber are your campus championship winners. They will take home that grand prize, $2,000, their lion's share of the $5,000 prize, but they will not sit atop the throne alone. Seneca, Centennial, and Kent State round out our top 4. Kent State do not get surpassed. They barely hold on to that 4th place position, but that fight for #2 was so close. Centennial, 3 eliminations, 3 points, 3 anything away from catching up to Seneca Red, but they just couldn't quite get them.
I mean, but what an effort, though, nonetheless. It is so close. I mean, even looking at where Fanshawe ended up, right? Only 10 points away from making the cut. I mean, this is exactly what we want to see. Teams just getting out there, working their absolute butts off to try and secure these points, playing the best possible PUBG they can. I mean, you got to love it.
I absolutely loved it. From start to finish, this was an incredible competition. And honestly, at the start of it, we were wondering, was this just going to be the Humber show? And very quickly became the show of every single college and university participating in this. Shout out to all of our colleges here, by the way. Again, Humber, Seneca, Centennial, Kent, Fanshawe, Arc, Conestoga, Jacksonville, American River. I'm trying to make sure I get through everybody here. I believe we also had a couple other teams that participated in the qualifiers. Sheridan College was in this one. one. University of Manitoba was in this one. I believe Toronto School of Management was in this. American River, like we mentioned already. Durham, Norquest. So many teams that participated not only in this main competition, but in the qualifier as well. We want to shout out every single one of them. DK, this was an incredible competition from start to finish. We're only about ready to wrap this one up, but not quite yet. We're just getting down to it. Any highlights you want to share with the audience as we wrap up our day?
I definitely want to say, especially moving through the last match of yesterday, right, heading over in towards Erangel. Again, so many upset have been played across the board, but definitely I think one of the highlights for day one was definitely the way that Erangel unfolded. You could see the confidence, the comfort coming through from the teams, just feeling so at home, making their way through. But for today, the momentum was just there, right? The teams knew what was at stake. They stepped to the plate. They just brought in as much aggression as they could. I mean, like Jacksonville, right? They also brought in quite a bit of hard work, securing themselves those 10 eliminations. The most exciting part for me definitely was this last bit. I mean, Dev coming so close to potentially even just sneaking their way into pole position for the game.
Gosh, it would have been crazy. I will say I was not expecting the competition to get as close as it did at the end there. Initially, it was a 30-plus point lead. All of a sudden, Humber's lead drops down to, I think it was between 10 to 20. So there was a world where it was getting close, but at the end of this one, it was still Humber who far away pull out as the victors. I do want to give a shout out though to American River College at the end there. Their strategy on day one was one full of criticisms from us, talking about how, yeah, the passivity is great, but you have other teams fragging out, constantly getting eliminations. How are you going to catch up to them? And in day two, they proved exactly how. They did take those individual fights. They did take those one-on-ones, and they were winning out with them despite their passive approach. American River, you may not have gotten into the money, but your turnaround from day one to day two was incredible to witness.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta agree with you on that. I mean, also, if I remember correctly, yesterday looking at Erangel, I mentioned that, you know, that zone would have been such a beautiful setup, especially for American River, looking at where we were with regards to the positionings. But yeah, I'm right there with you. American River, I think they played a very good day in general. I mean, things just looking up and up. And I'm so excited to see what we are going to have come through when we make it into the next campus championship, because I mean, collegiate level is where it's at. These teams just keep on lighting it up as they progress forward.
Teams continue to get better and better and better as time goes on.
Yep.
And well, the best thing is that I think we can have an interview with one of the players to hear a little bit about the insight that was able to carry them all the way to this win. I believe we've got Carty on the air right now. Are you here? Can you hear us? This is Carty from Humber. And if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, please do tell me.
Yeah, it's Khatri.
Khatri, okay.
Yeah.
Khatri, thank you again for joining us here. Congratulations, first off, for the win. I mean, how are you feeling right now? You just took home $2,000 of a $5,000 prize pool.
Yeah, like we are feeling pretty well. It's really fun to play here.
Well, DK, any questions for our winner here that you'd like to ask?
I mean, what
No,
would
like-
you advise, Gutri, what would you advise any opposing teams, right? What do you think is a good approach to take when heading out onto the battlefield, especially looking at what you guys have been doing so far? I mean, you just showed up so aggressively. So would you recommend teams to try and pick up as much of an aggressive momentum as they can, or maybe play a bit of a different strategy?
I think like they need to be real good around the like circle. They need to like take circle first, and it's like about the coordination first of the things. I don't think like we're gonna make a new team and like try to go on officials. It takes time. It's like takes some time to be here.
I think that's
Awesome.
kind of the sentiment that we continue to hear from a lot of teams throughout collegiate when it comes to almost all esports. I don't think PUBG Mobile is necessarily going to be any exception to that. Do you mind speaking just a little bit about sort of the collegiate scene within North America, talking about, having competitions like this and maybe even encouraging other players to participate? Because I know for a lot of players, it takes a little while before they pay attention to collegiate, but once they do, it kind of goes hand in hand with professional. Not sure how you feel about that overall. Kadri, are you still there? Oh, did we lose him? We might have lost him here, unfortunately. Making sure that we... All right, I think unfortunately we have lost our interview here, unfortunately. But that was Humber College. That was one of our winners. That was one of our favorite players throughout this entire event. Cauchery was fantastic to watch from front to start, or from start to end. But overall, DK, this was a fantastic competition. And again, hats off to them. Humber absolutely earned that win.
Yeah, I mean, there's no arguing that fact. Coming through with 49 eliminations, that is just an insane tally to come through. But I mean, this is what we love to see, right? Collegiate level really developing such a strong footing coming through, and a great platform for these teams and players to really try and flourish, right? Get that aggression, get that that synergy with the team really locked in, and see how far they can push it.
Well, we have to see how far they can push it, and we have to see if you guys at home maybe can push on over to Twitter. One last time, I want to shout out at Nace Star League on Twitter. We're giving away codes here for UC. If you hadn't seen them throughout the competition, we've been flashing them on screen. All you got to do, though, is go retweet their tweet about the giveaway for 10 more codes, and you can be entered into a whole other chance. Otherwise, that's pretty much everything we have got wrapped up here for the Campus Championship. If you guys are interested in more PUBG Mobile Esports action, don't fret. We've got the Pro League fall season starting back up in just about a week and a half's time on August 22nd. I'm ready for that one, DK. I'm excited to see what we've got. Before we head on out of here, any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, I just want to say, fantastic job being done by all these teams, these players, your squads. They're looking absolutely amazing. Cannot wait to see them play it all again. But of course, with that, I mean, yeah, get into the PMPL NAs. Go in there, go watch it, go get a bit of an idea as to what is expected from the flavor here. Because, I mean, already what we've seen on this collegiate level, really, really good work being done. We want to see more of that. And of course, as we know, the PUBG Mobile Pro League gives you just even more of a taste as to what you could expect.
Again, shout out to everybody involved in this competition. Shout out to the collegiate scene here for PUBG Mobile. As an ambassador of collegiate esports all across the board, I am ecstatic to see that there are competitions like this happening and to see how healthy the competition is on top of that. On top of a shout out for PUBG Mobile for putting on this competition, I also want to shout out Nace Starling as well for making sure that all of this could happen, as well as our friends behind the scenes. Shout out to Waveform and all the people that are making this production happen. Also, shout out to you, everybody. Please go follow DKZA_gaming on Twitter, and if you want to throw me a follow, I guess you can as well, at Bass from the Past on Twitter if you are interested. And well, hopefully you guys are interested in even more action. Like we said, the Pro League comes up in just a couple of weeks' time. I guess we will see you guys there. Thank you again for tuning in to the PUBG Mobile Campus Championships for North America in 2023. Have a great rest of your weekend.